Hi, I'm Jamie and welcome to Teachers Tech. And welcome to my beginners course in Microsoft Excel. So this course is developed to make sure to take a person from novice with barely any Microsoft Excel skills and bring them to becoming skilled and confident using Microsoft Excel. So we're going to start at the very beginning, at the very basics, and then scaffold it through so it's a nice step-by-step progress till the end and you're feeling confident about how to use Microsoft Excel. I have attached all the practice files down below in the description so you can download them and work along with me step by step along the way. Let's get started on how to use Microsoft Excel today on Teachers Tech. Let's go ahead and open up Microsoft Excel. Now I have it on my taskbar down below because I use it a lot and I like that quick access. If you don't see it there, you can go to your search and just start typing it in and it should pop open right away. If you want it on your taskbar, just right click on it and you should have some options to pin it to start or your taskbar. I'm going to go ahead and open it at this point right here. And when it pops up, we're going to do a quick walk around this screen. We are going to be working from a blank workbook today, but I just want to point out some things that you're seeing. Now here are previous workbooks, Microsoft workbooks that I've worked on, and I can just open them up again. I want to point out, notice this one says OneDrive and this one says desktop. I can save my Excel workbooks to the cloud, to OneDrive, and I can be sharing them with other people and working with other people at the same time, or I could be just saving them to my computer. The other thing I want to point out are these templates. If you're seeing these ones, these are tutorial templates, which are great step-by-step ones that they have the data in. You just follow along. Just to let you know, I do have a lot of other tutorials on Microsoft Excel, and I'll put links to the description in the description down below and up and above in the card. And make sure you hit that subscribe button so when I do release a new video that you're going to get notified when those come out. So the other thing here is more templates. Now these can save you a ton of time if you're looking for to create something like a budget or a calendar or an invoice, all these different ones. After you're done with this Microsoft Excel beginners class, you'll feel pretty confident manipulating these ones with the data that you want to put in. I'm not going to be covering them directly in this class today. So let's go ahead, we're going to create a blank workbook, and notice if I navigate on the side here from home, I can go to blank workbook here. So I'm going to go ahead and just open this up and we're greeted with the typical Microsoft Excel sheet here. Let's start with some basic terminology and a little bit of a walk around the layout in Microsoft Excel, the workbook that we just created. When we created that workbook, we get one sheet because it's a blank workbook. If we take a look at the bottom, it says sheet 1. We can create more sheets. We can rename these sheets, and I'll go over that later. But when you first start, you just have the one sheet. Inside that one sheet, you're going to have columns, you're going to have rows, you're going to have cells and ranges that you're going to be adding data to. So we can select these columns. So if I go up to C, if I just select C, I've selected the entire column now. So if I, on my mouse, just scroll down, you can see the numbers increasing as I go down and that entire column is selected. I can do the same thing for rows. So if I select this row right here, now I have the entire row of 3 selected, and I could go across and see the letters increase as I went across that way. Where the two intersect, where C and 3 intersect right here, that's a cell. So when I just select one spot like that, that's the cell. In this cell here is C3. If I take a look up at the name box up here, whatever cell I click in, I'll see that B3, D4, it changes. So if you need to quickly just see what cell you're in, take a look at the name box. Another important thing to know is what a range is. A range is when you have a bunch of cells selected. So here's an example. If I select B2, and I'm going to click on my mouse and drag and have a selection area down to here. This is a range right here. It's just not one cell, it's a group of cells. To know what this range is named, it's going to be from this right here. So this is B2, and then you'd have a colon, and you go all the way to E6. So that would be the name of that range. So that's some basic terminology, some important basic terminology to know when working with your worksheet on the sheet here when we first get started. Let's move to the top of the workbook here. I want to talk about the different things between tabs, ribbons, groups, and how to navigate everything here. If we go up, you can see I'm under the Home tab. So what we see here are the different tabs as I click on them. If I click on the File right here, it brings me back to that original page when I just started a blank one, and it has all those options on it. Now I can hit this arrow to bring me back to the workbook and continue working on it. So these are the tabs across the top. Underneath every tab, we have the ribbon. So the ribbon is this area right through here. And this is all customizable too. I can change the ribbon and the tabs to add more. Mine might even look different than yours. And I'll show you later on how you can customize that. But inside the ribbon, so if we take a look at this font right here where it says font, this is a group. So this right here is a group inside the ribbon. And we can go one more step after this because not everything is listed in this group. And whenever you see this right here, I can click on it and it gives me more functionality. So under the font, I can see all these different things through here that I can apply. So this is just a little walk around of what we're seeing. We have our tab across the top. Inside the tab, we have a ribbon. Inside the ribbon, we have groups. And then we can expand for more functionality whenever you see this. Now, the thing I want you to do before we move on is actually to save our page before we start entering the data. So let's do it this way. We could go from save up here, but for this first time, I just want to go back to File. And at this point, I'm going to go Save As. I could go Save As because I haven't saved this workbook yet. But if I go Save As, it brings me to a few different places I could save it. This cloud is for OneDrive, so I could save it into my OneDrive account if I wanted to do that. I could even save it into SharePoint sites here, and I have other accounts connected to this as well. If you want to save it to your computer, you could go this PC or browse. So if I go browse here and just go to my desktop, I have a folder, beginner's class here. I'm going to go ahead and open that up. What do I want to call this book? So maybe this would be, I'm just going to call this class 1, just like this. You can call it what you want, and I'm going to hit save. Now, as soon as I hit save, we're back on the page that we've been working on. I want to show you right up here. So this is called class 1. It's an Excel file, and it's saved to this PC. So then I can drop down and get some more information about this. But remember, you can also save it to OneDrive, and then you can access it through the cloud. Let's move on now, and let's start inserting some data into this workbook. So the data that we're going to be entering in today is going to be the top grossing movies of all time. If you took my previous Microsoft Excel tutorial, beginner's tutorial, you know that I used that too, but I have a feeling that the amounts in the data has changed since then. Now I'm going to click in A1 and I'm going to just type the first column heading that I want, and it's going to be rank. So go ahead, click in A1 and type rank. I am going to say I'll have all these workbooks that I show you today. I'll put the link down below in the description so you can download it and open it up in Microsoft Excel, and you can follow along with the data that I provide you. So we have rank here, and then I can go over to B2. So if I click in B2, I can write the next one, which is going to be title. So this is going to be title of the movie. So I'm just going to put title just like that. Now I've been clicking with my mouse to go to the next one. You might want to use tab on your keyboard. So if I hit tab, that moves it over. I could use the arrow keys to go around and to navigate. So there's different ways you can do this. Now in this column, I want to put worldwide gross. So this is going to be what the movie brought in with all, whether it be domestic or foreign, everything like that. So this is going to be worldwide gross. And notice right away, if you're new to Excel, it looks like that I typed it in C, and you can see in the formula bar up here that it's there, but it looks like it's in D. If I go to D, and I'm going to put my next one in, it's going to be domestic gross. So if I type in domestic gross right here, and I better spell that correctly, and if I click off of it, did I delete anything from here? No, I didn't, because the cells are separate. So if I click in C1, I can see worldwide gross, and domestic gross, I can see it there. Now we can change the width of our columns by going up, and as soon as we get this symbol, I can click and hold and stretch the column. So notice I can make it as wide or narrow, just like that. A quick way to do it though is to go up in between, and then if I double click, it automatically adjusts to what's written in there right now. So if a title becomes longer still, and I do that, it will adjust to the widest part so I can see everything. And I'll show you what I mean as I move forward. So if we go to the next one, domestic gross, I could do that and it adjusts. So we have domestic gross, and then I'm going to put year. Now I'll be probably adding more columns later, and I'll show you how to do that, but that's what we're going to start with right here. I want to show you a quick way you can adjust everything. I'm going to make these smaller. I can select everything on the worksheet here by just selecting this up here. So if I click this button, everything on the worksheet is selected. So if I was applying a format, everything would be changed. So if I said bold, everything becomes bold, even these cells. So if I enter something in later, it's still going to be bold if I turn it off. But I can adjust if I have everything selected and I double click between any of these. Notice how it adjusts everything to fit. Now, again, I might have to adjust that later, because as I start typing in different amounts or titles, that's going to be much wider. So now that we've got some titles in, let's go to our next step. If you're finding the font a little bit small and you want to adjust your view without changing any of the font size or anything, you can do this in a few different ways. Down in the bottom right-hand corner, we have the zoom. So I can click up to get a different view. I can slide that. And under the View tab up top, check in the ribbon. We have different zoom tools here as well to get it just the way you want to make everything comfortable. Now, let's talk a little bit about formatting. I'm going to go back to the Home tab and different ways that we can change the look here. So if I click into a cell once, I want to show you the difference between a single click to a double click. If I click this cell, A1, and I start typing something, notice that it just defaults over top. It just deletes what was there before. Here's a tip. You can use Control-Z or the back arrow up here to undo your last step. So I'm just going to go Control-Z. And if I wanted to just modify what's in there already, I can do this in a couple different ways. I could double click and go in here and type ranking. Notice it didn't delete anything. The other way, I'm going to just go Control-Z again. The other way I could do this, I can go right up into the formula bar and click in here and then add there. And now I've changed it from there. So I would have to adjust this just like that, like I've showed you before. So I can also go back and delete things. So just some ways to, to make some modifications to what you've already added. Now, let's talk about changing, things from maybe you want a different font to start with. I can select one cell at a time or a range of cell to apply those. So I could select one cell like this. I could make the change to a font to a different one. But probably in this, if I knew that I wanted to be all the same, I could select, and I'm just using my mouse to drag across, and I could go ahead and then select on the drop down of my font and choose the same one and make the adjustments that I showed you before. If I select everything and then just adjust for everything to fit. I could make some changes to color. So if I was going to go and choose maybe a red, if I wanted red, so the font becomes a red, I can change the background of the cell. So if I drop down, is there a color that you would like? I'll say green, and then I've made some adjustments. We can do the same thing with borders around these. So I need to select the area that I want to apply the borders. I have some right here. They give you some quick ones. So if you want all borders, do you want to just thick outside around, I can choose. I can even draw the border around. So if I click it, These don't show up that well. It wasn't that thick for what I have, but it's around the outside now. If I don't want them right now, I could go back and drop down, and then all I have to do is look for no borders, and it's there. Now, I want to point out, if you do change, and I kind of mentioned this before, if you select everything and then you apply, let's say, a color to it. So if I was going to say, we're going to make sure everything is going to be this color here. If I type anything at this point, and if I just type hello, notice that the color is applied to everywhere. Even if I go over here, since I had the whole sheet selected, it's changed everywhere. So that's be careful if you're going to change everything that way. I'm just undoing with a couple of Control Z's to get back to my previous step. Now, how I like to add titles, and this makes it an easy way, is to be using cell styles. So if I go and just highlight this again, I'm under the Home here, a Home tab. If I look in the ribbon, look for styles. And some of these other things are very important, like conditional formatting and format as a table, and we'll get that to this later on. But if I go to cell styles, look at the different ones I can quickly pick. So if I hover over, you can see an idea of what I have. So if you just hover over, and if I find something that I like, I'm going to go with the blue right here. And now I quickly adjusted the style just by using this one, cell styles. So we have some information in here. I'm going to go collect the data and put it in here so we can move on from there. Remember, just download the sheet down below in the description, and then you'll be able to have all the data that I'm showing you here today. So if you've downloaded the Excel workbook, this is what you should be working with, and this is where we're going to continue from. I have 15, so the top 15 here. So there is some formatting to do here that I'm going to make some changes to. The first thing what I want to point out is notice that the title, like I mentioned before, you're not seeing the words, the titles come up. So I could make this larger. So if I click in between the two, double click, and it stretches it this way. So that's one way I could do it. If you didn't want it to stretch out like that, let's say you wanted it just to be differently, we could wrap text in a cell. So if I go and highlight the information that I want to wrap the text, notice under Home, under Alignment, we have Wrap Text. So if I hit Wrap Text, what it does, it didn't expand the cell wider. It just wrapped the text into that one cell, so it's wider. The row height is higher here. So wrapping text might be an option if you want it that way. I'm going to just go Control Z, and I'm going to go with this method here just to stretch it out because I should have the room. But I'm going to show you why I might want to change this in a moment. Now, the other thing what I want to do is I want to add a title to this. So I want to add something above the top here, and I can insert more rows. I can insert more columns or rows. What I'm going to do is just on top of the number 1, when I hover over it, I'm going to right click, and notice I have Insert. So I can go Insert, and I just inserted another row. And I want to be able to call this the top 15 movies of all time. And I could write it in A1, but what I want to show you is you can merge cells too. So there's all these cells right through here. If I go ahead and select this right through here and click merge, and notice there's more options here: merge and center, merge and across. So depending, and I can even unmerge if I don't want the merge. So if I say merge and center, if I go ahead and just double click in here, the cursor is in the middle, then I could say top grossing movies of all time, just like that. So, and I have this title here that's centered across all the top. And I can go ahead and make the changes to, like I showed you before with the cell style. So maybe if I go and highlight both, I could go back to cell styles, and you can pick what you would like as one through here. So whether it be one at a time, or is it just going to be that one, and you get an idea of what it would look like. Do you want it to be the same? So I'm going to choose this one right here. So you pick what you want. So we've inserted another row. I do want to point out anything if I click on a cell, right click on C here, there is the insert here as well. Let's do a little bit more formatting with our dollar symbols now. So we have all our worldwide gross here in our domestic, and I want to format this with dollars. I could select one and format anything. If I go up top, I can select my dollar, and notice right away it puts these number signs in like that. If you ever see that, what's happening is there's not enough room in that cell. So for an example, if I stretch this out, now it comes out. So if you ever see that the number signs across like that, then that's what's happening, and you can just format the column width and then it's going to fit and see. So I'm just going to undo, because normally what I would do is change maybe everything at once rather than one at a time. So I know these are all dollar amounts, and then I can go back and click up here. I still have the same issue. I can double click in between and it will stretch out to remove that. Now, I want to point out you can choose different countries, whether it be Canada, US, UK, all these different options. And then we have, right now under accounting, we have the commas in there. So if it was just number, it goes back to this one. And currency, you can see kind of the different formats of each one as we go through the different ones. So I'll just leave it like this. And then the next thing I just want to show you is what this would look like if you try to print this. And I want to point out this line. There's a perforated line between C and D. This shows me in the current way that it's printing in a portrait that this is where the cutoff would be. So if I go over to File, and I'm going to go to Print here, and then take a look. So this is where where the perforated line was. This is actually 2 pages. So this wouldn't work very well to print it like that. One thing you could do, you could change the landscape to landscape orientation, and then it's going to fit across. So you can make that quick adjustment. If you wanted to keep it in portrait, you'd have to make some changes to this to fit. So if I was going to go back, you could try making this column not as wide, but you're going to lose some of this. So this is where maybe you want to try the wrapping. So if I click it once, then twice, and then I can make it a little bit smaller in here. And at this point, I notice the line is right here after E. I could try some other things like changing font size. If I go back to File and Print now, you'll notice everything's fitting on that one page. Now there's lots of other things under page layout under here. So to set up breaks and everything, I have a different video all about printing in Microsoft Excel. So I'll make sure I'll link that as well. Now I want to go over basic Excel formulas. I'm going to do this on another sheet. So first of all, let's rename this sheet rather than the sheet 1. I'm going to call this Top Movie. So I'm just going to go ahead, type that in like that. If I right click on this too, I just want to point out you can rename and delete sheets, and you have different options, even a tab color. So I could go ahead and change it. I'm going to go ahead, add a new sheet, and this is just going to be a practice formula. So I'm just going to type, well, I typed that in the wrong cell. I got to go be down here. So formulas, just down here, and I could make it a different color if I wanted to as well. So I could toggle between both back and forth. Okay, so formulas inside Microsoft Excel. The most important thing to remember is when you're starting a formula, you need to start this with an equal sign. So what I mean is if I go to this cell and I want a formula, I could use this as a calculator, but I have to put the equal sign in, and then I could say 2, and let's say plus 3 equals 2 plus 3, hit enter, it's 5. But 5 isn't in this cell. If I click in the cell and look in the formula bar, this is what's in the cell, equals 2 plus 3. If I don't put the equals in, it will not work. So just so you know that, you always have to start a formula with an equals. Now, what makes Excel powerful is cell referencing. So what I mean by that is, so I'm going to go ahead and put a number up here. So this is going to be 5, and we'll put 6 here. And I'm going to start another formula, remember, with the equal sign, with cell referencing. So this time, if I put equals and click on C3 and then say, well, let's go ahead and multiply. So the multiply is going to be the above the 8, the star here. Multiply what? Well, I could put a number in, or I could click on another cell. So this is going to be C3 times D3, which should be 30, 5 times 6. Hit enter, and I have 30. If I click on the cell, look at the formula bar here, and there it is. So this is what makes it Microsoft Excel powerful. If one of these numbers change, so if this changes to 10, I type 10, hit enter, this automatically adjusts because it's cell referenced, and if the cell changes, then the formula will adapt with the new cell reference. It's not really a number. The number 10 isn't in this formula. It's the cell that's in this formula. So that's just a little bit to know about kind of the walkthrough of working with basic formulas. So let's go back over to top movies and add a formula now. What we're going to want to add is going to be the worldwide gross minus the domestic gross, and that will give us a foreign gross. So to do this, though, we need another column. Well, we could add the column here, but I kind of want it right after. So to do this, I'm going to insert first. So I'm going to just select this column, E, and I'm going to right click, and I'm just going to hit insert, and notice to the left, it inserted this, and this adjusted up top. Everything stayed center as well. Now, this is where I'm going to place my formula inside this. So what do I want to call this? Well, this I said was going to be foreign, so I'm just double clicking in there so that this is foreign gross, just like this. So I'm going to go and label it. Now, inside of this, I'm going to also go to the center, just so it's all the same. And I'm going to go and start my formula. First thing you have to do is start with an equal sign. And we're going to be cell referencing. So if we go equals, what's the first cell? Well, it's going to be worldwide gross minus, so then we just go ahead and select our subtract key, is going to be domestic gross. And just like that, we can hit enter. And we have an amount here. Now, this is where Microsoft Excel, again, is powerful. We created this cell formula. So if we look up here, we can see C3 minus D3. I can copy this all the way down without having to do that to each cell. You could do this in a few different ways. You can drag down like this. What I tend to do is just double click. I hover over onto this green little square and I double click, and it automatically fills down. It knows where to place it. So it made that formula in every one. So for example, if I click on this cell, notice it's C4 minus D4. It changed. This was C3 minus D3 because it knows when I copied it down that I needed to adjust which row I was talking about. So it always adjusts, so I didn't have to go through to each one to create it. Now, there is something called absolute cell reference, and I will talk about that a little bit later, because sometimes you don't want it to automatically copy down. You might have a cell in one place and you need it to stay frozen to that. And I will show you an example of that in just a moment. Let's go back over to our formulas page, practice page here, and talk about just absolute cell referencing. And this is just going to be a little example on it to help you get your mind around it. But I have a different video on formulas and absolute cell referencing, and I'll make sure I'll link those as well. So we have some numbers. These are just numbers, no formulas or anything in them. And I'm going to create a formula right here. I'm going to say equals, it's going to be this A7 multiplied by B7, just like that. But I'm also going to connect it to a different cell. I'm going to say subtract this cell right up here. So let's hit enter. So 5 times 3 is 15. Take away 6 is 9. If this number changed, this would automatically change as well. So now the problem is if I go ahead and copy this down, so if I just go and double click or pull it down, whatever way you want, let's check if these are right. 4 times 2 is 8. Subtract 4 should be 4. And 3 times 1 is 3. Minus 4 should be -1. So something's wrong here. So if I click into the cells, so as I copied it down, notice this is D3. This is D3. I need to make sure this is always pulling from D3. It can't move. So when I go down to this next one, it's pulling from D4. This is D4 right here. So it's pulling 0. And that's why 4 times 2 is 8 minus 0 is 8. 3 times 1, if we go down, now it's moved down to D5. Because when you copy it down like that, it will keep moving like I showed you when we did top movies. What I need to do though is turn this into an absolute cell reference. So if I go back to D3 here, I'm just going to click in here and I need to put dollar signs around this. So what I mean is the way I do this is just to use my F4 key or function F4. You can put your dollar signs in front of each of these, in front of the D and the 3. And if I hit enter, it looks like nothing changed. But watch, when I copy this down now, if I copy that down 4 and -1, if I look at each cell, it's pulling from D3. It's staying connected to here. So that's an absolute cell reference. Again, check the other videos that I have about that I list in the playlist and down below in the description. Now, it's really important that you understand the formulas and functions are a key, again, to make Microsoft Excel go to that next level. And we're going to do a few basic ones here. I'll show you how to access these, but remember, I do have lots of different videos on different functions inside Microsoft Excel. So I do want to put a function down here, build a formula with a function in it to sum up our total amounts and find average. First thing though, you notice how when I scroll down that this disappears all the time. You can freeze your row or whether it be a column in place so you can always see what's in it. So maybe if it was names, if it was a long column over, but in this case, it's going to be a row. So if I select number 3, here, there's just this entire row. I'm going to go and freeze, so anything above it will stay in place. So I like using this search too, because if I can't find something under a tab, I can just search for what I'm looking for. And let's say freeze pane, and I'm going to go freeze panes here. So now what happens is I can go and scroll down and this always stays in place like that. If you want it gone, you can go back and unfreeze it the same way, just have it selected and then go back and unfreeze it and it will be gone. Okay, let's move down to the bottom. Let's try and insert just a quick formula in here, or sorry, a function inside the formula. So we're going to go to formulas right here. Look on the tab, and we're going to show a few different ways how we do this. And this is just going to be a quick one with the auto sum. So if I click on it, well, what do I want to sum? I could click sum. And it went through and chose everything from this down to here. And it looks like that's pretty much right. It is choosing this one right here. So whether or not I don't want C18, I could go through and just hit 17 and it adapted here. There was nothing in that cell. So if I hit enter, now it's added just like that. So it's that quick. And I can copy these over. So if I was just dragging this over, now it's summed up domestic because it moved over. Notice the columns, D3 to D17, this is D. So it's able to copy those over. If I go down here below, I could use these here. Is there an average that I want? I could hit average here. Well, it's not of that right here above. It is going to be these ones. So I could go and select the range that I need, hit enter, and now I have an average of everything. So that quick to use them. Now, what I like is they have the function library here. So they break it into categories for you. So you can see whether it be financial, text, date and time, all these different ways. But we're not diving into all those on this tutorial. I want to show you a couple different ways that you could enter your formulas. I'm going to delete these for now. So I just selected and hit delete on my keyboard. I tend to use a different method. So you could go from right here, hit insert function, and you can search. So if I was looking for sum, I could go and there's sum right there, could select it. What's the range I want? I could put it in. I see it has the right range that I want. I could adjust it, or I could go ahead and select my range just like I did before and then hit OK after. So that's another way you could insert your function. I'm going to delete this. What I tend to do, if you know what you're looking for, I start my formula with that equal sign, and then I just start typing the function that I need. And it goes through alphabetically, looks for it. Here it is, sum. I can double click on this, and I could put in my range. I could type it in what I want, or I could select my range like I've showed you every time before, hit enter, and there it is. So this is the way I tend to do it, but if you're just starting, you probably want to either try under the formulas tab or through here. But then after a while, you'll probably notice that once you know what you're looking for, start with the equals. If I was looking for average, I could go ahead and then select average. I could go select what I need from there. So I don't have to select everything. If it was averaging a couple, I could do that. We can copy them over just like that. So you see how you have a lot of these different options with the functions, and there's so many, and this is where it brings everything to the next level using Microsoft Excel. I want to talk about sorting and filtering in Microsoft Excel now, and I just wrote some random stuff just as an example before I show it on the list here that we've been working on. But with sorting and filtering, I can sort based on numbers, or I could go alphabetically, and I'll show you some different ways we can do this. But let's say in this case right here, if I highlight these things, you can see 8265. And if I go up to, if I'm under the Home tab and I go to Sort under Editing here, and I wanted to sort maybe the smallest to largest. So number 2 should become the first. Notice mouse is next to number 2. If I select it, it changed it. So now I have 2, 5, 6, 8, but all of these changed, they stayed with it. Now I could also do it a different way. If I was going to go and highlight and go back to sorting and filtering, maybe do a custom sort, and I could go sort HI based on the cell values this time, and it's going to be also on A to Z. So if I hit OK, notice now that it's cat, dog, fish, mouse, because that's the alphabetical order, and the numbers moved around to it. So just a little bit about sorting some data that way. I'm going to go and delete this right now. Another way, what I like to do is add a filter to this. So I'm going to go and highlight my row here just of the headings, and I'm going to go back to sort and filter. I'm going to add a filter to this. So if I select filter, I get all these drop downs now on all the ones that I chose. I'm going to just show you from year. I could filter from smallest to largest, largest to smallest. So maybe I want to see by 2023 coming out first. So that would be this one. And they put 2023, and I can see right now it's the Barbie movie for this one, and it sorts them all the way to Titanic in 1997. I could also search for an individual year on this. So if I go back to my sort, and right now everything is selected, I could hit select all and then look for 2015 and hit OK. And now it gave me back all the movies in the year 2015 that came out, and I can see the different ones through here. So it's not the complete list. If I want to go back and see everything again, I could select all, hit OK, and then I have. So this really lets you drill down on the data that you have. I have a short list here, but imagine if you had hundreds or thousands of entries and you wanted to start filtering it for something specific in it. This could save you a lot of time. Now I want to show you how you can chart inside Microsoft Excel. This is just touching the surface of it. I have a different video that I go through extended charting. Take a look at that if you want to learn more about it. I'll put a link to in the description down below and up above in the card. And the other thing is to change your rank. If you still have your filter on, you can show your rank to the smallest to largest. So filter this one. So then we're back to our top. Now, we don't have to create a chart for the whole thing. We're going to start by just doing the top 5. So what I want to do is actually, I'm going to highlight from title over here to worldwide growth. So I'm just going to do this selection here. Now, then if I go up to insert, and we look under charts, we have all these different charts here. We can go through these quick ones. We knew if we wanted to see the different types of bar charts in here to the pie ones. I'm going to go to recommended charts. So I'm going to select this, and then it gives you an idea. If you go to all charts, you can see everything. I'm just going to start with this basic one right here, and I'm going to hit OK. At this point, the graph plops in here into it. I can move it around. I can click and hold. When you click and hold it, make sure you kind of get into this area. I'm just going to place it right here. Now, if I want to expand the data that's going to be in the graph, all I have to do is look at this area, and I can go and pull it over. So if I pull this over one more to domestic gross, then it's going to be added in here. So it's an easy comparison visually. I can see which one has done the best for domestic versus the other ones. I could even bring it over again to show foreign gross. And I can grow it the other way. So if I wanted it more than just the top 5, if I wanted it to be maybe 7, then I have even more in here. So I can make those adjustments very quickly, even after I started making the graph. So now what I can do is even make some more changes to this. Do I want some elements? And you can do it in a number of different ways. Right now, I don't have any chart title on, and I can be adding and I can make some quick style changes up here. So first of all, let's try a styles change. So if I go, I like this one with a contrast and I select it, it pops a little bit more. I can still adjust all this information, but this gives me a quick way just to kind of get started with the styles. And I'm going to leave it there. But I want to add some more things to this. If I go over to add chart element, what do I want to add to it? Do I want an axis? Do I want axis titles onto this? Do I want chart titles? Well, let's go with a chart title. So if I click on this, now I have a chart title. Sometimes it defaults with this depending on what you chose. So I'm just going to go, I can click in here. What's the chart title? I'll just say top grossing movies here, and I'll just leave it just like that. And I'll click off. So I've made that change. Notice when I click on the chart, I get all these different options under chart design. I get another tab that comes up. So if I click off of it, it's gone. Click on it, it's there. Let's add something else. And I'm only going to add a couple things here, but if I drop down and then I go to, let's say I want a legend, I could choose to have a legend on the right-hand side, and then I choose it. So right there, now I have my legend here. It's pulling it from this different series names across the top here. So I'm quickly adjusting this as I go through. I can change colors at any time through here. And I have quick layouts too. So if I wanted to still make more changes, you could try hover over different ones. If you wanted things to be just differently presented, you can see what works and what doesn't work when you choose different ones. Try that approach. If you like, maybe I like it at the bottom right here, and I'll leave it. Then I've adjusted it like so. If any number changes in here, it will dynamically affect what the chart looks like. So here's an extreme example here. So for avatar, if this was going to 5,000, this won't even show up anymore when I hit enter. Notice it's gone right through here because it doesn't even register for the other one. So I'm going to go Control Z, put it back, undid that last one, and then it's back. So everything's dynamic. If this changes, the chart will change as well. If you go through and double click on the chart, you do get formatting options through here from the fill to border. I'm not going to show you everything on here. I just want to show you where you can go through and play. You can change different areas. So if it was things like the legend, what did you want to change in it? So right now, if it was no fill or automatic, you could choose maybe a solid fill. And right there, the color's there, but I could adjust it to a different color just like that. So I can make all these changes to it. And if you close out, if you right click on the chart, you can see there's lots more options that you can do. You can change the chart type from here, save it as a template, move the chart. You can save this as a picture as well. Now I could go through, if I was going to go and check file and then print, it gives me an idea of what it's looking like right here because I had the chart selected on it. So since this was selected, that's what I chose to print. If I click off of it into here and I go file, print, now notice that it's I would have to do some formatting on the pages, how it's going through, and probably I'd want to change it from landscape, and I probably change the size of the page and everything, but it gives you an idea of the different ways. So if you just wanted the chart printed, just select that and then hit print. So that's a little bit about charting inside Microsoft Excel. The last thing I just wanted to show you today, and I mentioned at the beginning, was about customizing your ribbon for Microsoft Excel. I'm going to go just up here, and you can right click in a few different places. I could right click here like this, or up here. You're going to get customize the ribbon. I'm going to select that. I'm just going to stretch this out so we can see everything. And I'm going to move this over so we can just compare. Notice, I'll shrink this. We have home, insert. Here's the home, here's the insert. Draw isn't selected, so it's not showing up. Page layout is there. So that's where all these tabs are showing up. Now, if I wanted to add a new tab, I could go ahead and click New Tab. And this top level one, maybe I wanted to rename it. And I'll just call this Demo for today's purposes. Hit OK. What do I want to add to this? Well, I have to add to the group. So if I wanted to add, well, I'm going to add cut. And I'm going to go through, I'm going to add freeze pane to this and insert picture. So kind of random, but I added these things to this. When I hit OK, look at that, demo is there. And then I have my group that I created. So you can create your own ones if you just want that easy access, rename things the way you want. I can go back, right click, customize. If you don't want this anymore, I could go back, choose if I wanted to delete, maybe remove the group or remove the demo. I can just go through and do that. The other thing I wanted to point out, we do have our quick access toolbar at the very top above the tabs. This is all that's on it right now, but if I wanted to have maybe cut on it, I can add it. Or maybe I want to have, we'll just add one more in here. It's going to be insert table, add. If I hit OK, now across the top, this is how you customize your quick access. So you find those ones you just want to go up and click on it, will save you a bit of time. So now we've covered the basics of how to use Microsoft Excel. Let's advance those skills looking at some of the powerful tools inside Microsoft Excel to help you with data entry, showing you more functions and how important they are to use. And make sure you have the right spreadsheet open. You'll see all the tabs at the very bottom. Just make sure you check that in the description and open it and keep following along. Let's start with a time-saving tip, how to make yourself a little bit more efficient using Autofill. In the workbook, we're just on the first sheet. So if you take a look down below, we're just on this one that says Autofill. Now, how Autofill works is it can recognize the pattern is needed. In some cases, they just know the pattern and it can just help populate. So in this case of January, I don't want to go down and have to write in this next one, February, and start typing out all the months. You can use Autofill for this. So if I click on a cell like this, and I just go over to where I see the fill handle, this green little square at the bottom, and hover over, I'm just going to drag down. Watch as I start dragging here. So February, March, April, May, and when I let go, it populates with those months. And I can do the same thing with days, just like this. So if I click and drag down, you can see the days populating here. Even if I abbreviated the days from Monday just to Mon, like this, M-O-N, it recognizes the pattern and does this right away. I could do the same thing if I was going to do this, January as J-A-N, February, F-E-B, it would recognize that as well too. Now with numbers, it's a little different if it's just one number. So if I go ahead and try to autofill with the number 1 and copy down, it just copies 1 again and again and again. I have to help it out a little bit here. So what I need to do is I'm going to just go Control-Z to undo that last one. I need to increase the pattern. So I'll put a 2 here, just like that. And now if I highlight both and grab and drag down, it will know the pattern and it will just keep filling it out. If I was going to go ahead and maybe wanted to go up by 5s, I could put the next one as 10 and do the same thing. So make sure that you highlight both of those, and then I could drag it down and the pattern will be recognized. You can see how this can save you a lot of time. I've been going vertically, but you can go horizontally on this too. So notice over here, January. So if I was going to drag this way, January, Monday, same thing. Everything works across vertically as well. So if you're putting column headers, this can save you time doing that. I want to show you though, if we go to the left. So in this case, if I was going to go back and start dragging to the left, notice December, November, it will go in reverse. Same thing with the days. This will become Sunday here. Now, if I go to the numbers here, I can continue on just like I did before. But if I go the other way, take a look at this. As I drag, you're going to notice that it starts to go 0 and then it goes even into the negatives. So a little technique using autofill can save you a lot of time where you don't have to be typing all this information in. I want to show you how you can create your own autofill now. And we're going to use this as an example here. I have apple, banana, orange, and let's say we're typing out this list lots, or we want this list, and we want to just be able to have it recognized in an autofill. What we can do is go to File, and take a look at the very bottom. We're going to go to Options right here. So Options, it opens this up here. I'm going to show you a shortcut. I'm going to close this. If I just right-click up here and then go to Customize the ribbon, this pops out. So I am in Customize ribbon, but it brings you to all the Excel options as well. I'm going to go to Advanced and just drag this all the way down to the very bottom. And we're going to go Edit Custom Lists right here. So just click on this. Now I could go through and I could type things like apple, and I hit enter, banana. I could make my list like that, but rather than even typing it out, maybe you already have it once in Excel like this. If I go here and just go and now grab the list, and I can go back and just click this again and hit import, there they are, just like that. So now I have this list. You can see I have other lists that are already in here. So Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Sunday, Monday. So all these different ways. So if you know you're using something over and over again, you could change that or add them just like I'm doing. So if I go ahead and hit OK, and I'm going to hit OK again. So let's go over here now. So if I started typing apple, just like this, it should recognize that this is part of the autofill. So if I drag this down, notice it populates the list right away. So again, that can save you a lot of time if there's a list that you're using over and over again. So autofill is a great feature. Let's move over to flash fill now. So now it's time to switch the sheet. So at the very bottom, just make sure you click on flash fill now, and you should see this data that we're going to do a little bit of practicing on. Now, what's the difference between autofill and flash fill? Well, autofill kind of works in a linear chronological way just to fill in the list, and I showed you how you can create your list. With flash fill, I would consider it smarter. It can find the patterns in the data that you have and then fill in all the blanks that you want it to. So let's start with a few examples to show you how this works. Let's start with this list right here on how to use flash fill in Microsoft Excel. Now, I want to pull out the first names from this down on this side right here. And I don't want to have to go through and type each one, Emma, Noah, Olivia, and so on. Flash fill can do this so much faster for you. If I go and do the way that I showed you with autofill and just grab the autofill handle here and drag down, it just copies. It doesn't recognize any pattern. It just put Emma over and over again. But if I go to this here, the autofill options, take a look at flash fill. Just select it. And it said, hey, I think I know what you're doing. You want to have the first name of these two in here. So just like that, it did the list for me. Now I'm going to show you a shortcut for this too that's way faster. If you have this first cell selected, try this on your keyboard, Control E. So Control E, it will just populate that list a lot faster and save you even more time. You can also find flash fill up in the ribbon. I like to just search for things now when I'm looking at, so it's so fast this way. If I just type flash fill and click on it, if you notice, it said it didn't like that because I didn't have the cell selected what I wanted to flash fill. So if I go back to it and type it again, flash fill, it populates it like that. So I don't even, I can do more than just pull out the first name. So here's an example. If I delete all this, I could go, if I wanted the first initial and last name. So if I type Johnson, and you have to type things correctly or else it won't recognize the pattern. So if I put E. Johnson like this and go Control E, it pulled out the first initial from the first one and then the full last name. If you wanted just initials, I could go ahead and put EJ in the first one and then use my Control E to just fill it, Control E, just like that. So you can see the time-saving advantage of flash fill. Let me show you a few other ways you can use it. If we move on, in this case right here, so Mia Thompson, I created this, I just rewrote this once like this. I want to put emails to this. So if I click in the cell, and you'll probably see this pop open, I'm just going to click off of it because I don't want to send an email. I'm just going to go Control E, and it takes this and knows what I want and populates that list just like that. Now I could go ahead and do something like this. If the dates were formatted this way with month then day, maybe I wanted day then month. So if I click in the cell, Control E, and it will copy it down. We can also do things like take from two cells. So if I have this cell and this cell here, and I write Charlotte Clark in this cell, and I use my Control E, it will know to pull that down. And again, I can make different combinations if it can recognize the pattern. Here's one that can save you time for formatting. You know how hard it can be to read phone numbers like this? I just rewrote it once like this, put the, just to break it up so it's easier to read, click in the cell, Control E, and it goes down and flash fill. Even if I have 3 columns like this, I could go and type Zoe Patel, 1992, and we'll go ahead and just use our Control E again. In each case, we have the first name, last name, and the year after it. So lots of different ways that you can use flash fill to save you a lot of time. Now I want to talk a little bit about combining cells in Microsoft Excel. I just showed you flash fill, and that is a quick way to do this. So if I was providing this example, make sure we're on the combining cells sheet now if you want to follow along. I'm going to go through and just go Control E. It does the flash fill. The one reason I don't like using flash fill is it's not dynamic. So what I mean is if Ned chooses to be called Nettie, it doesn't update over here. So it stays as Ned Stark. I would have to do that again. These other methods that I'm going to show you with the ampersand or these different functions, you will be able to dynamically change them if this list changes here. Let's go and start with the ampersand here. So I'm just going to go here. And remember, when we start with the formula, we need to start with an equal sign, just like what we talked about in the beginners class. So I'm going to go ahead and put an equal sign. We're going to cell reference. We're referencing this one, so A2, which has Nettie in it. And then I'm going to go ahead and put the ampersand sign in. So the ampersand sign is above the number 7. I'm going to go Shift. And then I'm going to go ahead and click on the next one, which is B2, and hit Enter. Notice it says Nettie Stark, all one, and I don't really want that. I want to have the space in it. So you have to do something, if you want the space, you have to do something a little different. I'm just going to click on the cell here. If I go ahead and double click in it, it brings me to this, and I can make the changes this way, or I could go up to the formula bar to make some changes. But what I'm going to do is just after the ampersand sign here, I'm going to go and add some quotation marks just like this. And actually, I'm going to put a space in between them like this, and then add another ampersand sign and then hit Enter. Now I have the space. So double click and you can see what I did. You need the ampersand sign on both, and I put the space in between. I could do something differently. So if I wanted to have, hyphened, you can see how it changes like that. But in this case, I just want to have the space that I had here. Now, take a look at this. If he goes back to Ned and I just go and change this, this updates automatically. This can copy down, so I can go and drag this down just like other methods. And then this, if I click on any of these here, you'll be able to see the ampersand sign in here. Now let's talk about some of these functions that you can use. And the reason I have these 3 different functions here, depending on what version of Microsoft Excel you have. I'm using the newest version, 365 version of it, and I would probably be using text join to combine it. But if you're on an older version, maybe you'd want to be using concatenate, and I'll show you how to use this. If you have a version of Microsoft Excel before 2016, this is probably what you're going to use as a function to combine cells. I'm going to go and use my insert function right here. And let's go ahead and look for it here. So I'm going to go to start typing, and I'm just typing CONC, hit go. And these are actually the 3 different functions that I'm going to be showing you here in the next few moments. But we got concatenate right here. I'm going to hit OK. So what's my arguments? Well, my first one is going to be Ned over here, so A2. And if I click in here, notice another spot is put in. I do actually have to use all three spots in this way. So I need to actually put the space in between. So just like before, if I don't put this, it's going to be put together. Then I can click in my last one and then put Stark in. So then, or B2, and I hit OK. Now notice if I double click in it, you can see the formula here, concatenate. It's going to be A2, and it put the space in between and then B2, just like that. And I can go ahead and copy this down. Now with the concat, so if you're with the newer Microsoft Excel here, we can try this one. This one is a step up because it allows me to choose a range, but it doesn't quite allow me to have the spaces in it. So I have to kind of default to the other way. So what I mean is if I go ahead and if I put equals this time and start typing concat, you can see there it is here. If I was going to go, I'm going to keep typing, notice concatenate. It just shows that it's out of date here. You get that little messaging here, but this is concat. I could go and grab a range here and hit enter, and it puts back Ned Stark, but I can't add the space in it. I would have to go back and do the same thing that I did before. So I could delete this. I could go put my concat, spell it correctly, concat right here, select my first one, use my comma, and then my spaces like so, and then another comma, click on my second one and hit enter. And then it works kind of just like concatenate on this one. Text join though is what I find if you're at the newest version, what you should be using, because then the range will work and you can add your delimiters. Text join fixes the issue that concat had with the lack of spaces that I could add to this. So let's go ahead and start this. So I'm going to put the equals in here, and I'm going to type in text join. Here it is. I'm going to select it. So what do I want here? Well, the first thing is going to say, what's the delimiter? So delimiter is like a space or a hyphen. What do you want to go there? I want a space, so I'm just putting in my normal way with the space in between the quotation mark, put my comma, ignore empty cells. I don't have any. I'm just going to go ahead and ignore this. So I'm selecting this one, put my comma in here. This is what I like. I can go and grab a range now. I don't have to go A2, then B2. I'm going to grab a range. So just by the A2 colon B2, I have a range. I hit enter. I can go to it and then fill it in. Again, if any of these things change, so if I go to Netty here, look which ones change. So that these all change right through here. So these are dynamic and the flash fill wasn't. So those are 4 different ways besides flash fill that you can join cells together. In the beginner's Excel class, I went through filtering and sorting just kind of in a basic way. Now I kind of want to dig deeper into it and show you kind of an advanced feature and also a function with filter in it as well. But first, before I do that, you can see right here how the formatting isn't quite right. I want to give you a little tip for a shortcut to quickly format your width and your row heights and everything on it. So what we're going to do is if you click anywhere in the data here and just go Control A. So Control A will select all. Now the next thing what you're going to do is go to Alt and H. And that goes to your home tab if you look up top. And it's giving me all these letters over the screen. It indicates what I want next. I want to go to format, which is O, and then I can adjust the column width. So you can see the column width. I want the auto column width is I. So I'm going to hit I. Then it adjusts it. So I also want to do any rows that aren't there. So I could go back to the Alt H for home, then go hit my O again. And this time what I want to have is the row one, the row auto height, and that's going to be A. So like that, everything is adjusted. So if you get to know those shortcuts, you can quickly format all your column widths and also your row heights on it. Now, let's go and do some sorting on this. I'll do a quick review from what I did in the first beginner's class. Before we do some sorting, let's just go ahead and add another column. And I'm just going to go and click on the E column here. And I could go Insert under the Home tab and insert a column this way, or I can just right-click and insert this way, and it adds the column. We're going to just double click in there, and we're going to call this foreign gross, just like that. And we'll do a quick formula. So we're going to go equals, and we're just going to say it's going to be worldwide minus this one. So we get a total. It doesn't fit. We can just go correct our column width by that double click here, and we can use the fill tool, double click, and fill this in. So it gives us a foreign gross here. Now, let's do some quick sorts. What we're going to do is just highlight everything. We're not going to sort it by rank because we can see already it is there. But if we wanted to change the order of the rank, if we do highlight everything, we can go under the Home tab over to Sort and Filter. So we have Sort and Filter if we wanted to go from largest to smallest, because right now the number 1 is coming up, so that'd be the smallest, but let's go largest, and it flips everything and all the numbers adjusted to it. So you can see Avatar still has this. And we could also right click on this, and we have the sort here. We can go, this time we could go smallest to largest, and it puts it back to what we already had. We know they're in the correct ranking of these ones. But we could also do it different ways. If I go and highlight, maybe if I just wanted to sort it by alphabetically, I could do that. So I could go and right click, use my sort, and then we could go to sort Z to A. There you go. You can see everything changed alphabetically. So I could go through, and I'm just going to go Control Z to undo that. I could go and sort by a certain column. So if I chose this one, if I chose all of this information and sorted it, it's going to sort here. Now, let's talk about filtering. So I like to use filtering more than sort, and I'm going to add a filter to this. So I'm going to add a filter right across the top to this area. I could right click if I wanted to, and we have our filter. I could go and filter through things, but I actually want to go up top to sort and filter and click here. And notice that I have the drop downs that come on each one now, and this allows me to sort from these. So let's go and filter. Let's go by year. So if I was looking at years, I could go and select all, and then turn 15. Okay, now it only shows me the 15 here. So sorting allows me here to go through with the filtering to find exactly what I'm looking for. And then at this point, I could even filter again in it. If I was just looking for one of these, I could just unselect this and hit OK, and then it will go even further down. So I have two different ones on. If I go back up to this, I could go clear or reapply, you can see, but if I clear, it puts everything else back to normal. So let's go another step and look at an advanced filter. To use the advanced filter, I want you to go up to the Data tab here and take a look in the ribbon under Sort and Filter. Notice that we have the same options that I showed you under the Home tab or right-clicking. There's always a number of different ways you can get to these. I want to go to the Advanced here, but I want to do a little bit of stuff first. I actually want to go in this cell, and I'm going to type year, and I'm going to type in some years that I want to filter. So it's going to be, and this is kind of random, I'm going to say 2019, we're going to say 2015, and I'll just add one more here, and we'll go 2012, just like that. And you could pick any three that you want. I'm just going to click inside this information here, it could be in any cell, and then I'm going to go to the advanced. So there's right here, so I'm going to select it. Notice that since I was in it, and sometimes you don't have to be within it, and it will just find the data here. And so list range right here. And now criteria range is what I chose here, what I wrote. The thing is, though, you need to make sure that whatever the header that you place over here needs to match one of the headers over here. So you can see I have year here and year here. And I'm just going to go and hit the criteria range, and it's going to be right here. And hit enter, and I'm back to here. You could also go multiple columns. You just have to make sure that, again, your header is going to match the range from something within here too. So I'm just going to hit OK. And now it's given me back those years. So 2015, I can see 2019 and a 2012. If you want to clear your filter, if you take a look up top, we can go up and just clear it and it puts it back. So I could go and enter some more information. So if I was turning this to a 21 here, then I could go back and do the same thing that I did before and go to advanced and choose it based on those. What I like next is I'm going to show you the function filter that can do, I like it how you can kind of dynamically change things from one cell reference. So on this spreadsheet, let's go ahead and set up the space we need to use this function, this filter function. And I'm going to go ahead and select just the headings here, and I'm just going to go Control C, and I'm going to go Control V, place them over here, and I'll just highlight all these columns and double click in between to set the width quickly that way. And I also want to filter by year again, so I'm going to type year here, and I'm just going to put a year that I want to filter by. I'm going to change this, but I'm going to just type 2019. Now, I'm going to put the filter function right in this cell here. And to do it, I could do the equals and start typing filter, but I'm going to go up to insert the function here. So insert function, and if you don't see it on your list, you can type filter, hit go. This is a Microsoft 365 subscription function, so if you're not seeing it, that could be why if you don't have that. So I'm just going to go ahead and select this filter. So what do I need? What's the array? Well, the array is going to be, and I don't want to include the headings, is going to be this area right here. So that's my array. What am I going to include? So this is what I'm going to, so I'm going to click into the include. This is going to be where it's searching like down here. So I'm highlighting everything in here, but I also have to add a step here. So I'm going to be adding the cell reference. So I'm going to put an equal sign in, and I could type the year 2019, but I want to be able to have it cell reference. So if I change that cell, then it will change automatically. So I'm just going to click on this right here and put it in. And then this last part here, if it's blank, I just want it to return kind of blank. So I'm going to go and just put a couple of quotation marks there, and I'm going to hit OK. So, and I can adjust this more here, so you can see this one. And then I could do some formatting on these as well if I wanted to add the dollar signs. But take a look, 2019, so it's pulling from here. What I like about this method, if I was going to look for a different year, I could just type it in here, so 2022, and now it's bringing me back 2022. This way, you know, if you set any of these up here versus the way when we're just filtering, if you had a list of thousands and you had to go and deselect and select all the ones you want, where you can just go ahead and type it in here using the function. So just some tips about filtering, kind of from the simplest to the advanced filter to even using a function. So now I want to show you how to create a table in Microsoft Excel and show you the benefits of why you would want to use a table. We've been just using a range so far. So a range is when I select, from different points of cells, and that's the range, but now it's a table I want. And to turn this into a table, it can be done very quickly. I'm just going to click anywhere within this information, this data set, and go to Insert. And you can see there's table right here. So if I click on table, it comes up here, the range is there, and then my table has headers, and it does have headers across the top. I'm going to hit OK. And as soon as I do that, it's created this table. And if you take a look up top in the tabs, we have table design, and it gives us all of this information. And I'll talk about this a little bit more, all these different things in the ribbon that we have. But I want to show you a couple things first. If I want to turn this ever back to a range rather than a table, we have this right here. So we have convert back. So I can go, do you want to convert the table to a normal range? I can hit yes. And notice those filters that were automatically put across the top are gone. The formatting still exists, but it's still just a range right now. I want to show you a shortcut for this though. If you're doing this quickly, you just use Control T to do this. So Control T, and it automatically pops up with create a table. I'm going to hit OK. And now this is back to a table again. And I want to point out too that we have a table name. So this is called table 5 right now. You can choose the different name for this. So if I wanted this table to be called top movies, like so, and I'm just going to put no spaces in here, top movies, and now this is called, that table is called top movies. Now, some of the things that were created right away, we had these filters added that are, and I showed you how to work your filters. You can go through, I can click in here, sort all the same ways that I showed you before. We could also do a numbered filter or even a custom filter if you know you're looking for something specific. For example, if I was going to go top 1 and maybe I want to see the top 7. Here, items, hit OK, and it quickly shows right through here all the different ones. And then if I click back, I can go and clear my filter and it pops open. So it makes it very nice to quickly go through. Another benefit is if I go ahead and add anything to this table, so if I was going to go and use my foreign gross that I said before, so we'll just type that in. It automatically expands the filters there, even though I don't have anything in it. And it happens the same thing. So if I keep adding more rows, it's going to expand this way as well. The great thing is when I do a formula, and we'll do the same formula that we've done before, I want it right in here. I hit equals, and we're going to do just the simple one that we had, the subtraction one from this. So notice it's not coming up as C2. This worldwide gross became a named range in here. So worldwide gross minus this right here. So domestic gross. And watch what happens when I just hit enter. It fills and adjusted the width of this entire column and filled it. Now another great thing that you can do, so if I'm going back to table design here, make sure you have this tab turned on. I want you to look at some of the options in the table style options, like we can, whether a header row or not. You can see you can toggle it, click these on or off if you want. If you don't want the banded rows or banded columns, just like that, turn them on or off. But what I want to point out is the total row. So I'm going to hit a total, and I just need to expand this. It automatically came up with a total down here, but we have even more options. Take a look at this. So if I drop here, I can just quickly, if I hit max, it went and found the max there. If I was looking for an average, I can just quickly change it. So you can see the things that you can do within a table, how quickly it allows you to do this. And with the other columns, you can do the same thing. So if you're looking for a different total or a max or min, you have all these options under any of them. Just do the drop down, and then you could go through and sum them up and adjust to everything you want. And the other thing is, take a look at the table styles. If you do want to change the table styles, you can take a look. You could go through, hover over any of these, and you can get an idea of how everything looks through here. So our next step that we want to do is insert a slicer into this. So a slicer can help filter everything. So first of all, before we insert our slicer, I just want to add another column to this, and I'm going to call this Studio. And this is just going to be kind of a fake, just for adding information so we can do some filtering. And I'm just going to call this Studio 1 here, and I'm going to just copy down to get 3 of them. So the autofill goes through, and now what I'm going to do is just copy, or you could go right or Control C, and I'm going to go Control V and paste it down to fill up all my spots here. So I have a repeat of Studio 1, 2, 3. So remember, I could filter through different studios like I showed you, or like just normal filters that go through just like that. I'm just going to undo that. But what I want to do is add a slicer. So a slicer, if you take a look and make sure that we're under table design, we have insert slicer here, and we also have it under the insert. We have under filters the slicer. So multiple ways to get to it. I'm just going to stay under table design. I'm going to insert a slicer. So notice I get some options, what my slicer. So I'm going to slice this up or add my filter slicers for this. I'm going to look at studio, and I'm also going to look at year here. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. So I get these 2 slicers now. And I'm not diving into it in this one, but I want to point out that up top now I have a slicer here, so a slicer option in the tab, and then I have underneath of it, I get all of this in the ribbon, and I can go through and adjust the colors of this and do the formatting and put buttons and size and everything. So if you're doing a dashboard, you can make it look exactly the way you want. But I just want to show the functionality here. So here's an example. If I wanted to search by studio, I could go and pick Studio 2 and it filters it. Then I can see the 3 years that they have, and then I could even filter it down to another level. So I can go and clear these by just hitting up here and it goes back. And notice as I do this, all the totals are changing to it. So if I was going to look for 2015, and right away I can see Studio 2 and Studio 3 come in. Then I can even go to select Studio 3 after that. So you can do multi-select 2 if I just, I can clear again from here, but multi-select is with your Alt plus S on it. So just making sure if you want to select more than one of these. So that's a little bit about tables and slicers. You need to have a table to insert the slicers to it, but you can see all the extra functionality that you get if you use tables with your data versus just the range on it. This is an extremely important concept to understand, cell referencing, especially when we're talking about relative and absolute. So make sure you're on the correct sheet, cell referencing, and we are just going to do some simple formulas, but we're going to be talking about those two topics of relative and absolute cell referencing. So I need to create a formula right in here that will give me the total of week 1. So I have a unit price and I have sales for week 1. So I just need to multiply these two. That's a pretty easy formula. I'm going to go into this cell right here and start it. So equals, it's going to be price per unit multiplied. So multiplied by this. If I hit enter, $13, that looks correct. Can I copy this down? I'm just going to autofill that. Yes, so it went through or did all the calculations. Everything looks correct in here. So what I want to do actually is go to the formulas page and I'm going to click show formulas. You notice things get expanded, but just to show you what's happening here. So this is just relative. What I mean by that with the columns and rows, it's actually relative. If I go ahead and when I copied this down, it is relative depending to what row it's in. So as I copied this down, this changed to C5 multiplied by D5, and I needed that C6 times D6. So this is working correctly, being relative if I'm just using this one column like this. I'm just going to turn the show formulas off. Where I run into a problem, let's say I'd like to be able to just copy this over. So if I want to copy this over this way, $780, if I double click in here, it shows me what the two cells that are in here. So 26 times 30. Well, that's not correct. I need it to stay on price per unit and multiply by week 2. So this doesn't work. When I copy this over, I need it to stay in this column of C. So how do I do that? I need to make that column absolute in my formula. So I'm going to go back a step. I'm just going to delete this information and I'm going to delete all of this right here. Actually, I'm going to delete everything. We're going to recreate the formula using absolute relative. So I'm going to go and start with equal, and it's going to be this one right here, C4. What I can do is I can add dollar signs, and this is how I make something absolute. Now, a trick to this is just to use the F4, and sometimes you have to hold down function, depending what your keyboard is. But if on mine function F4, I press it once, it puts dollar signs around both. I don't want that because when I drag it down, I want the row to change. This would just lock into place, and I'll come back to absolute in a moment. So this is absolute, absolute. I'm going to press F4 again. Now it's in front of the 4. So this would be the row that won't move, but I want the row to move. It's the column I want to stay in place. So I'm going to press it again. Now the dollar sign is in front of the C, and that's what I want. I want it to stay in absolute for that column. And I'm going to complete my formula now. So I'm going to just go multiply by this right here and hit enter. $13. So it looks the same. And if I double click on it, I can see the dollar sign is in front of the C, nothing in front of the 4 on it. So everything, if I go ahead and copy this down, everything else still looks correctly. So let's go back and show our formulas. So if we go formulas, show formulas, everything, so C5, notice it's staying in that column. That's what we wanted, and it worked the first time. And but now when we drag to the other side, watch this. So I'll turn off my formulas, and I just want to drag this one over. Now it's $15. So if I double click in this one, C4 times E4, so C4 times E4, that's correct. So this was absolute and relative because, oops, I made a mistake there by clicking out of it. I'm going to hit enter, and I'm going to copy this formula down. And if I just click on this one, so it's price per unit times sales by week, that's correct also. And so as I go down and keep checking these, you can see I was able to copy over to the column and then copy it down, and everything stayed correct because that first one is locked into the column, but this second spot right here, E6, is relative to the row that I'm in. So that is the first example. Now, let's say I want to be able to, I can do this with rows as well. So I'm going to show you a little trick here too for something else. I'm going to go and just copy this. So I'm going to go Control C like this, and I'm going to paste it down here again. So I'm just going to right click, but what I want to show you is this right here is transpose. So if I go to transpose, it changed the way it was set up. So notice now I have my days across the top and then this across the bottom. So if I was going to make sure I want the row locked into place versus the column, it would be slightly different. So I'm going to go and just delete this information out. So if I was writing this formula here, I would be equals. So it's going to be multiplied by this here. So what is it? So B15, it's not the B I wanted to move when I drag it across this way. It's going to be the 15 I need to stay in place. So rather than using the F4, I could just go put the dollar sign in here as well. So I can just go Shift 4 and put it in front of the 15. And then I can do my multiplication, and it's going to be here just like that. So I get my $13. So if I drag this across here to fill it out, everything looks the same here. I can see the same amounts are coming up here. So if I drag this down, let's see, $15, that looks correct. And then if I drag this across like this, everything is matching up. So if I go to show my formulas again, you can see here, so with it in front of the 15, it's always staying in that same spot of the 15. The 15 is staying the same because I have it in front of the, so this would be relative absolute, and this one up here is absolute relative. Now I want to go to the last example, and that's going to be absolute because I don't want it to move from the cell. So if I go to show formulas, and let's say there's a discount. I'm going to just quickly do a total here. So it's just going to be a sum right here of these two here. And we'll copy this down. And we're going to apply a discount to this. Notice there's a discount up top here. And if I was going to say, if I would just went through here and say equals this, and I'll do a multiply versus this. Okay, here's my discount. That works fine. What happens when I copy this down? Well, notice I went to a blank and then value. Take a look. If I double click in here, as I copied it down, it's trying to multiply it by this cell that says product in it. That doesn't make any sense. I need to lock it in that one cell. It needs to stay in B1. So what I need to do to this, and I'm just going to go through and just delete everything. And if I go here, so equals this multiplied by this spot, and this time I'm going to go back using my F4, so function F4, and I'm going to hit it once. When I have it with absolute, so the dollar sign is in front of the column where it started, so the B, and also in the row, that's absolute. I'm going to hit enter. Now when I copy this down, it works because if I click on any of these, double click, this up here stays at B1. Notice that this is selected. I double click in here, B1. So it always stays in the exact place. So those are some different examples from what we had with absolute relative, relative absolute, and absolute absolute, depending on the situation, how you're copying those formulas around. Now we're going to go through on how to use the if function in Microsoft Excel. This is a very important function to understand to create these if statements. The whole idea when you're creating these if statements, you're really going to get back to results. So if you're comparing a value, you'd be saying, if this is true, then do this. If not, then do this. Let's go ahead and create one right here, our first if statement in this cell D7. And we'll start it off pretty simple, and then we'll just add things and give you some different options and carry forward some of the other things we've learned in this class. Now, I'm going to go ahead and for this part here, I'm going to start the function from insert function here. So we'll go insert function. If it doesn't show up right away here, do your search for if, hit go, should be right at top. So I'm selecting this one. So we need to do the logical test. What do we want to have happen? So in this case, what I want it to have happen is if it looks in this cell right here, and this number, if it's greater than, we'll say 700, just like that. And as I create this here, take a look at the formula being created up here as well. So you can just see kind of the structure of it. So if this value is true, what do I want to have happen? Well, I want it to say doing good. So I'm just going to type in doing good right in here, just like that. So the other thing that I want to have happen, so if it's false, I just want it to be blank. So this is where, again, we'll put in our double quotation mark like this. And I'm just going to go ahead and hit OK. Notice it's blank, but that's okay because this number, it should be blank. It's not above 700. Let's copy this down and see what happens. So in this case right now, so doing good, this is above. So we looked at this one and said, hey, if this is above 700, give me back doing good, or else give me a blank. And so in this case, it gave me a blank on it. Let's move one step forward here into this cell. And we're going to create it again, but we'll do some cell referencing here. So let's go ahead this time and just put the equal sign and type if just like this and select the function if here. And what's the first thing? What was our logical test? Well, we're still looking at the sales here. So it's going to be this here and is greater than. So we'll keep that the same. So it's greater than. But let's go and reference this. So it's greater than 700, this cell. And based on the last lesson that we just did with the cell referencing, we're going to be copying this down. So this can't move. So to do that, we need to make this absolute. So absolute, absolute. I'm going to just use my function F4 like this to put the dollar sign around each of it. So that's the logical test, and we'll hit our comma. And then what this happens if this is true. Okay, so we're just going to, again, click in this cell right here, and we need to also make that absolute, absolute. So again, F4, function F4 that I'm hitting on mine. And what's the last thing to have happen? Well, I'll put my comma, and I'll just put my double quotation mark here, and then end my bracket and hit enter. Nothing seems to be happening, but remember, these are the same numbers. I'm going to copy this down. Is it matching up? Yeah, it is. The great thing with cell referencing is that if this number changes over here, so if doing good turns to be 400 here, hit return, notice everything's there. So if this is dynamic now and making the changes because we did that cell referencing. I could also change what I'm saying in here, and it would be reflected down here. So let's move now to the next column with an end also in it. In this column, we're going to use the if function again, but we're going to add the end function in this as well, because I want two different things to have happen. When it looks up this number, if it's above whatever number we put in here, so right now 900, it will bring me back doing good as long as it's also below 1200. So let's go ahead and create this with our formula. So I'm going to put my equal sign in. We're going to start with our if again. So if But this is where I need to add the other function right away, is the end function. So the end function here. Now I can go and start putting my steps in. So what's the first thing? Well, when this right here, so C7 is greater than this right here. So remember, similar to what we did before, we may need to make that absolute. So I'm going to go and put my dollar signs around it, just like that, and put a comma in. The other thing I need to have happen, if C7 here is less than, so we need the less than symbol, this number, again, put the dollar signs in again. So I'll put those in here. And now I'm going to go and close my bracket, put a comma in. What do I want to have happen? Well, it's going to bring me back doing good. And remember to put, again, we need to absolute this one. So we'll put that in here. And the other thing it brings back is going to be blank. So if we put our blank in here, and we could put something else in here. So if you wanted to put, I'll just put test, just like that. And we'll close this and I'll hit enter and we'll copy this down. So you can see what are doing good and the other ones are saying test, but I don't really want it to say test. So what I can do is go back and I can just delete that out of here, just like that. And I'm going to go and copy this down again over top. And so I only have two that are doing good based on that parameter. So if I look at the formula here, I'll just go in here, double click. You see it looked up. It said if it was greater than whatever number this is, and less than whatever number this is, then bring me back this here, otherwise a blank. And if this number changes, so if I was going to go 400, you can see the different options. Now we're even going to go another step forward. You can see all the different things that we're doing right through here. We're on the step 3 if t-shirt sales are above 700. So if we're going to put this number back in here and below 1200, we want doing good to come up. And if it's in between, but we also want to have great month pop up if it's not. Now on this one, we had the nested end function. With this one, we're going to have the nested end function, and then we're going to add another if function. So we're going to have one inside of it. And to kind of speed this up, I could start typing this all up, but I'm actually going to show you how we can copy our previous formula so we can just add to it. This spot right here, I know this is going to work, this first part. So I'm going to go up here and just go Control C to copy this and hit enter. And I'm going to move over to this cell right here and go Control V and paste it in. So you can see up top C7. I didn't want to drag it over because that would have moved to the wrong column. I would have at C7, but this is all done correctly. But where I need to change it is here at the end. I don't want it to just come back blank at the end. So I need to remove this. And this is where I'm going to put in another if statement at this time. So if I go ahead and start typing if again, you can see I get the option and I can go ahead and complete this. So what do I want to have happen? Well, if this right here is greater than this cell now, so above 1200, that's currently what we have set it up with, and we have to make that fixed or absolute, so make sure you go ahead and put those around. I want it to come back with this, great month. And again, making sure where the dollar signs are around it. Otherwise, it's going to come back with bad month with the dollar signs on it. So we get that all set up. The other thing we have to do with this is add one more bracket. Even though we have one bracket at the end, you have to match your brackets. So I need to add another bracket. So this bracket here and that bracket match, this bracket, you can count the matches between each of these and how you're closing up on these ones. So we need that double bracket. So I'm just going to go hit enter. So they're saying this is a bad month. Is that correct? So it's below 700, so that's correct. Let's copy this down. And we have great month. So great month would be above 1200. And you can see all these are the doing good are in between. And then we have the bad month coming back. And these, remember, we can adjust these numbers here. So if this was going to be different and everything changes in this column. So that is kind of the beginning point of the if function here. So we did it from a basic if function by itself in an if statement, and then we did our nested and then we added our nested and if in it. So you can see how you can add other functions within functions. So let's move on to our next part of this class now. Let's create a drop-down list using data validation in Microsoft Excel. So take a look at this. Let's run through an example. Under fruit, notice when I click in the cell, I have the drop-down here that I can pick, and I get to pick from these different fruits. So if I pick bananas, there's bananas. Here's the list right across here that it's actually pulling from. If I drop down to the next one, same thing, I could pick oranges and so on. Now, the thing that I want to show you after we just do the basic setup of a dropdown, I want to go to a step further and show you how to create another dropdown that's dependent upon what you chose in the first one, like this. So if I go to type, notice when I drop down now, it's going to be all my choices from the banana. So I can pick a banana. If I go to oranges and drop down, I see all my orange list here. Let's try this one more time with apples. So if I pick apples, there we go, we have our apple list. And you can see all the different lists that we have in here, but when I chose this first one, this adapted to the correct list. And I want to show you how to create that. So make sure you're in the right page. We're on the data validation sheet, so you can follow along and create your own. Let's start with a basic way just to create a simple drop down before we get to the ones that I showed you before. Now, if I want to drop down right here, and let's say we're just going to pick two different types of fruits, apple and oranges. So if I want it right here, what I need to do is look up in your tab and go to data, and then look for the data tools right here. So data validation. I'm going to just select it here. And then the next thing I want to do is go to list. So right here. So list is right here. At this point, I could add my type of fruit that I want. So if I want apple, and by comma, I'll put oranges in this spot, and I'm going to hit OK. At this point, if I go over, I get the handle here for the drop down. I have apple and oranges here. So I could choose either or, very simply like that. Now, I'm going to go back up to data validation again, and I'm going to go and hit clear all right here. So notice I hit clear all, hit OK. Now it's gone. Even though there's something still written in there, that was the last thing I chose, there's actually the data validation is gone. A different way I could do this, if I go back to data validation, I could go and choose my list here. And this time, let's go here, and I could select my list across and hit enter and hit OK. Now I have my complete list where I could pick different ones. So it's that easy to put in for a drop-down list. And the nice thing with the drop-down list, you can avoid typos. When you're entering in the data, you can make sure that everything stays the same, especially if you're doing filters on it after. Now, this isn't the way that I created what you saw previously. We're going to do a few more steps. We're going to undo this step here and start from scratch because we're going to do a few other things here first. The first thing that I want to do is turn this data into a table. And just like earlier in the class, we can use the shortcut Control-T or go up to the insert and do the table this way as well. So this does have table headers, yes. Now we have a table here. So the reason why I made this a table was in case something gets updated, maybe I add another banana, it will update the list as well. So that's why I'm using the table here. Now, the next thing I actually need to do is name these ranges. So this through here, I want to have this named as a range called apples, this one called bananas, this one oranges, and this one lemons. To do this, it can be done very quickly. If we go to our formulas tab, take a look at this. We can create from a selection. So I'm just going to highlight this area, create from selection here. And I want just the top row. So that's where the values are going to be. And if I just unclick the left column and hit OK, doesn't look like anything happened, but take a look at this. So if I drop down over here, I have apples, bananas, lemons, and oranges. If I go and select oranges, that shows me the highlighted oranges part there. So that's a named range. If I click a different one, bananas, it moves over. If I go to table 10, That's the table that I created right there, which I could rename as well, but I'm going to just leave it there. If you ever need to delete any of these different names that you wanted, you can go up to the name manager, and here they are, apples, bananas. If I wanted apples deleted, I could delete it just like that. So just to point that out. So we have a table and we have our named ranges. The reason why I named the ranges is because I'm going to use this indirect function that allows me to direct it towards a range. So let me show you an example here. I'm just going to type in A1 here. So A1, just like that. And I'm going to use the indirect function right here. So if I go in equals, so I'll start typing indirect, comes up this one right here. So I'm going to select it. I'm going to reference this one right here, and I'm just going to leave it like this. So when I hit enter on this one, look what happens. So hit enter, it brings me back fruit order form. It didn't bring me back A1. It brought me, this was an address that it brought me back this spot. So when I'm using indirect with the named ranges, it's going to bring me back the list that I have. So just a little bit about indirect. Let's go ahead and start our drop downs. And the first actually drop down isn't going to be anything special. It's just like what I showed you before. We're going to use data validation. So we're going to go to data. We're going to use data validation here. We're going to use our list here. Let's go select our source. It's going to be across here. So similar to what I showed you before, I'm just going to hit enter and then OK. And then we have our first one. So we can pick our different ones right through here. And I can copy this down as well. But I'll wait a moment before I do some copying because I want to do the type. So when I choose this fruit, the type will change depending on what fruit it is. So this time, when we use the data validation, I'm going to go ahead right back to my list here. And I'm going to actually put my formula right inside here. So I'm going to go equals, and I'm going to type indirect. So indirect. It's going to be based on this cell right here, which is A6. So I'm going to just type it in. You can select it if you wanted. I could actually select A6. It comes in with the absolute dollar signs around it. So I could F4 till they go away, but I'm just going to type it in like that. So indirect A6, so it's going to look at this one, whatever's in this one. Let's hit OK, and we'll see what happens. So now when I drop down, it is giving me this list because it's looking back at that range and pulling from there. So can we copy this down now? So if I just highlight these and drag them down, and if I drop down, let's say we go to oranges, and we go to here, so all oranges. If I go to apples, this should be all apples through here. So you can see how it's working very easily, and we didn't even do that many steps. So at this point, we could go through, and if this was an amount that you're entering in for these or dollar sign, you could go through and finish this. And remember, it makes it nice because you're going to avoid any errors with typos in here. I was going to point out why we did a table and everything. Watch how fast. Notice that with Macintosh, there's an H missing here. So if I go over here and just put the H here and just click off of it, if I go back now and drop down and pick it, the H is there. So it's already updated. If I was adding another example here, I'll just type example. Can't think of any more banana names off the top of my head. So if I type example, and if I go over here and pick bananas here, and you'll see example is there. So I can quickly add more. And that's why I did the table so that it automatically updated. That's how you create a drop-down list using data validation, and how you can create a dependent drop-down list using the indirect function in Microsoft Excel. We're going to go and create an entry form so we can keep filling in this list or edit it or search in here. So what I mean by this is, watch this. So we have to turn this into a table, just like we've used many times before. I'm going to use the Control-T to do this, and my table has headers, just like that. Do notice I do have the shortcut to create tables up top here. You can add that as well. Now I'm going to go and add a form to this. I'm going to go to the search, and if you type form, it comes up, looks like this right here. So I'm going to go and choose it. Notice here is my data entry form. I can do a few different things. If I wanted to go through, I can just go through and read all the different ones that I have here. I can go through and make changes. So I can go and edit too. So if I go back and I don't want the name in the middle there, if I just delete that and hit enter, it's made the update. If I want to go through and maybe delete somebody, I can do this. I can hit OK on this just like that. And then that's deleted. So I'm updating the entry through here. I can do a search. So if I go to criteria and I was looking for maybe anybody in House Stark and I hit enter, all the ones I see now, if I go to next, notice that they're all in House Stark. So I can go through and it's keeping to that criteria. And of course, I could add a new one. So if I wanted to do a new entry, I could hit new. Maybe I put in Arya here and I know it's House Stark and it's going to be Macy here. I probably won't spell it right, but oh well. And I'm just going to hit enter and I have a new one entered just like that. So you can see it adds another way that you can enter this. I want to go and show you how you can add a shortcut for this as well. So if I just hit close on this, we're going to put one up top in our quick access here. So I'm going to go and right click on this and customize the ribbon. And where we want to go to is our quick access toolbar. I'm going to stretch this out so we see this. This shows me everything that's on there. There's the insert table one. I'm going to go to the commands not on the ribbon, and this is all in just alphabetical order. So I'm just going to go to F, and you're going to see the form right there. I move it over to have it over here, hit OK. So now at any point, I just have that quick access here that I can click on, and it will pop up, and I can enter in more data using a data entry form. The last thing that I want to show you today is conditional formatting, how to apply it, and why do you even want it? So if you take a look at this right away, what you notice, it changes it visually. And to me, this makes it more functional too, because you can just quickly glance at the different columns and you can see what's happening based on whether you choose an icon or these bar graphs. And in this one, I even have a formula. So I'm going to show you how to apply these different types of formatting to the data that we have. We're going to go through and apply a different conditional formatting to each of these columns. Now, before we do that, we do need to select what we're going to apply the conditional formatting to. So I could go through and select here this way, or we could use a shortcut like Control Shift and hit the down arrow, and it will go all the way down to the bottom of where the data is. And just another tip, if you wanted to select everything, we could just hit the right arrow, and then it will go all the way to the other end. But in this case right here, I just need to have this first column selected without the header in it. So once you have that selected, let's go up to conditional formatting. I want to apply data bars to this one. We're going to go to data bars, and we can see that as we hover over, there's different colors here. So we can take a look if we want the solid fill versus the gradient. And we even have more rules. So these more rules I could set. I'm going to come back to this in a different one and create my own rule with a formula. But I just want to show you, you can get into these. So if you want to create your different colors from here, you can do that from here. So, but to quickly add just our data bars here, let's go to this right here, or you pick which one, and I just go ahead and select it. And then visually right away, I don't really need to see the number as much because my eyes will go to the highest one. So this is a great run with the data bar, depending again what you want to be showing and what the data is. But this really helps bring the eye to the highest amounts and even the lowest amounts, or to see which ones are similar. Let's move over to the profit column now, and we're going to go with a color scale. So again, we need to select this. So we'll select this column, and we're going to go up to color scales. And we do have our more rules like I showed you before, but we can hover over the ones here that will indicate kind of what you want to show. So you notice if I hover over here, the high ones are blue, and the bottom ones are in red. The more negative it gets, the lower number, it gets redder. So you can see what you would want. Again, change the rules if it's are the colors to it through the rules that way. So if I leave it just like this, I can quickly add that to it. Now, if we look at customer satisfaction, let's try an icon set. So I'm going to select again this part here. And if I go back up, the icon set right here, I have all these different things I can add to it. If I hover over, you get the idea of it. In this case, what I want to do is go to the stars because this is customer satisfaction. To me, this makes the most sense to show satisfaction out of these icons. So if I choose it and I look at what it shows, the one that's fuller gets the most satisfaction. So I don't even have to look at the number. I can just see the icon and go from there. Let's try something else under days to deliver. Let's say in days to deliver, I want to highlight anything that's taking over 15 days to show that there's a problem. I need to check into this. So if I was going to go and just highlight this one and go up to conditional formatting, I could use the highlight cell rules. And look, I have a lot of different ones. I can even be using ones that are on dates, that text that contains, and so on. I'm going to use the greater than one here. So I'm just going to change this. It's set at 14.5, but I'm going to go ahead and type 15 in there. What do I want it to fill with? You can see I have different options, whether it be red text, custom. I could go to custom format if I wanted to set it even more, but I'll just leave it as this one right here. And it draws my eyes to ones that are the problems of those plus 15. So just an easy way to detect this. And if I didn't want to have any of these on it, I can erase the entire all this conditional formatting too. So if I was going to have this selected, I could go to conditional formatting and clear the rules. So since I have that selected, I could just go clear rules from selected and it will go back to with no formatting, or I could clear the entire sheet from here too. So just if you did want to erase things. Okay, let's move over to return, and we're going to try the top bottom rules. So we'll go ahead and then select it here. We're going to go up to our conditional formatting here, and here is our top bottom rule. And we're going to highlight the top 10% of the return rates. So it's already done for us. Again, we could adjust it with more rules, but I'm going to go with the top 10%. You can see if it's above average or below average here. I can go and choose this one. What do I want to happen? Do we want it red or green, or you choose? Maybe I'll do yellow this time just to show the difference, and then hit OK. And I can see the only two that have come from there. All right, so the last one that we want to do is add we're going to add a formula in here. So what we're going to do is take an average and see anything greater than the average for this one. So we can see if anything's popular, and this will be able to give us this quick glance to it. We're going to add a simple formula to this last column here. Before we do that, I'm going to insert a number right here. It's going to be 40. So I'm going to create a formula that will look at this number, and if any of these numbers are equal to or larger than, then it's going to be formatted to the color that I choose. So let's go ahead and start this now. So we need to select our data that we're going to apply the conditional formatting to. Drop down. We're going to go to a new rule. At this time, you need to go to use a formula to determine which cells to format. And this is where we put in our formula. So to start with, I'm just going to click out of this by clicking here and selecting this top cell. You need to select this top cell that we're applying this to. So I'm going to select it. And the other thing is, see how it has the dollar signs around it for absolute? We don't want that. So I'm going to get rid of these dollar signs, and I'm just going to hit F4 a couple times. I want it just F2. So I'm going to leave, go back. And what do I want to happen? Well, I want it to be, so I said if it was greater than or equal to. So I'm going to put the greater than and then the equal to. And I'm going to just select this and this spot right here. So this does need to be, this would be absolute, and that's fine. So I'm going to just select this back. There's no format set. What do I want to have happen here? I'm going to go format, and I could change, you can see from number, font, border, fill. Let's just choose this purple one right here. I'm going to hit OK and OK. So now it went through and changed anything that's equal to, there's a 40. Notice that this is hard to read. If I go back again and let's go back and just go to manage the rules. Here's the one I just created. I can edit this and I don't want that font to be black there. So I'm going to go format and I'm going to go to font and here's the color. I want it to be white this time. I'm going to hit OK and hit OK and apply. So I'll leave there and now this is much easier to read. So that's how you go back and edit and you can check to see anything that was equal to 40 or greater was highlighted. So that's how you add a formula with conditional formatting. Play around with all the different styles, try making some different rules to see what you get. This can really make your sheets stand out with just easy understanding of the data that you have. Over this next section of this Microsoft Excel Beginners course, we're going to take a look at some specific functions. We're going to look at SUMIF and SUMIFS, COUNTIF and COUNTIFS, and date and time functions in Microsoft Excel. Knowing all these functions and how to work with them properly will be an important progression in your Microsoft Excel skills. Let's get started now with SUMIF. Now, what I want to do first of all is just talk about the sum function. So just like this, the sum function will total up the column up above it or the selected range. Now, what's the difference if you're new to this to using the SUMIF or SUMIFS? Well, what SUMIF will do for you is it can look through this all these different commissions here, sales, and based on a criteria that you pick. So let's say if I just wanted to add up the north sales here and give that total back, I can do that with SUMIF. Let me show you how you do this. So I'll just say what I want again. I want to be able to just look for the north regions here and add those numbers up. So that's where I'm going to do a SUMIF because I only have the one criteria of the north. So I'm just going to go ahead and start my function, my formula. So I'm going to type in sum, and you can see SUMIF right there. I'm going to select it. Now, if I follow along here, what is my range? So the range that I want to select from is right here. So these are the different directions. So I'm going to highlight this. Now I'm going to put a comma and it's asking me for the criteria. And this is where I can type in or select from a cell reference. So in this case, I'll just type in and I'm going to type in north, just like this. And then I'm going to put a comma in, and this is where it's going to be the sum range. And what is the range where I want things to add up from? Right here. So I can go ahead and close the bracket. And so what's going to give it back, it's going to add up all the norths as a total sum. So I'm going to hit enter and I have 57,000. So just to double check, if I look up here at 20,000, it should have chose. At the 9,000 would be 29,000 and add the 28,000 would give me 57,000. I do want to point out just cell reference in this example too. So if I was going to go and do the SUMIF again on this one, and I'll just use a cell reference and rather than typing it in, so I go ahead and select my criteria here, comma, and this time I'm just going to select the cell. Remember, if you type in anything, it has to be in the quotation marks. You just can't type it without those. So I'm going to use that cell reference though, and then I'm going to put another comma and then give my range again for the sum, and then just close it, and I'm going to get the same number there. So go ahead and try those SUMIF now. So one of the reasons why you'd want to use your cell reference would be it makes it really easy to make some quick changes to what you're even asking the criteria from. So instead of north, what happens if you want south? Well, I could just type south here, and you can see how it quickly pulls out the numbers for just south on this one now. Now let's move over to SUMIFS. And why would we use SUMIFS? So SUMIFS is for multiple criteria. In the case of SUMIF, it was just the one thing I was looking at. It was just the sales region. But what happens if I want to say pull from the house here and how many new customers to add that up? So I'm going to add in another criteria. So I'm going to go to this place right here, and I'm just going to go to equals. And this time I'm going to put SUMIFS. and go from here, and notice that this time it's a little different. It's asking for my sum range first. So this is my sum range. I'm going to select this because this is what it's going to be looking to add from. And I'm going to put a comma. And what is criteria 1? Well, my first criteria is going to be from the house. So I'm going to highlight this right here and add a comma. What do I want it to look for? And I'm not going to use cell reference on this one. I'm just going to type it in. And so I'm going to use my quotation mark and I'm going to type in Lannister, just like this. So I'm going to make sure I spell it correctly in quotation marks, and I'll put another comma. What's the other thing I want to compare it against? Well, I want to compare it against new customers. So I'm going to highlight or select this range here and comma. And I want to look for anything greater than 10 new customers. So we have to use our quotation marks again. So we'll add that in, put the greater sign in here, and then 10, just like this. And I'll end it and end my bracket. And you can see 22,000. So what it would look at the two different ones. So there's only 2 Lannisters, and this is the only one right here that's above 10, because this one right here is only 4. So it looked through 2 different criteria. Let's try one more and adding a third criteria. So for this last example, I'm just going to be doing a SUMIFS on the commission. So I wanted to add up certain commissions based on the criteria I pick, and I'm going to pick 3 of them. I'm going to go to this spot right here to start my formula. I'm going to put in my equal sign, then I'm going to type in SUMIFS and continue from there. So what is going to be my the range that I'm going to be, the sum range is going to be this one. And I'm going to hit my comma, and I'm going to go to my first criteria, which is right here, new customers. I want to look for any of them above 20 new customers. So I'm going to go ahead and do my quotation mark here. So I'm going to put greater than 20 like this and close my quotation mark, give a comma. What's my next criteria it's asking for? Well, in this case, I'm going to say I want to see anything above or equal to 20,000. So greater or equal than 20,000. I'm going to put my comma, my quotation mark, put my greater than equals 20,000, like so, and then I got to make sure that I end this and then comma. And what's the last criteria I'm going to look for? Well, let's say it's going to be based on region again. And so I'm going to highlight this region here. And I'm just typing things in, but you could use your cell reference. So I'm going to say north. I'm going to end it and hit enter. And I get 4,800. So what did it find? It found this one from the north here, this 2,000, and then this one from the north at 2,800, and both of them have 29, 22. This is $20,000 or above, and this one would match the criteria. So you could keep adding more criteria based on it. You just got to make sure you follow kind of the operation of the formula that they're helping you with. We're going to switch over now to the COUNTIF function. So make sure you have that practice file open. So let's start with the basics of COUNTIF. And I'm just going to start with a simple example here, and that's with this region code. I'm just going to count up how many of a certain number there using that function. When we start any formula, we're going to go ahead, click in the cell where we want it, put our equal sign to start, and I'm using the COUNTIF, so I'm just typing COUNTIF. You can see I have the option right here. I'm going to go ahead and select that. Now I said I'm going to look at the region code. I want to see how many times 1, 2, 3 comes up. So I go ahead and select my range like this, add a comma, and now I can say what I'm looking for. And when you're typing that in, you need to use your quotation marks. So I'm looking for 1, 2, 3. I end my quotation marks, and then I have to end my bracket here and hit enter. And you can see 1, 2, 3 comes up 4 times. Here's the first one, second one, third, and fourth. Now, I just want to point out cell reference too. So I'm going to go to this spot here, and I'm going to start my COUNTIF formula again. And you see there it comes up. And this time, I just want to use a cell reference. So I'm going to go ahead and use the same range. It's going to be this range right here that I want. and I want to give a cell reference where I'm going to type it in here. So notice there's nothing there right now, but I'm going to click on it and end it and hit return. It comes back as 0. But now with a cell reference, I can quickly type something here that I'm looking for. So if I'm looking for a 341, I can type 341, hit enter, and it quickly gives me the 3 back because 341 shows up 3 times here. And I can change this number very quickly and get it to return. So cell references can make it easier. All right, let's go on to our next example with COUNTIF. So that's just with searching basic numbers, how many times it appears. But I can also do things like greater than or less than, and I'll just give you a greater than example. So I'm going to go to start my formula again. I'm going to go with my equal sign, type in COUNTIF, and it's right here. And this time my range is going to be in this one here. So now I'll say I want to look, I could use different operations. I could use equal, greater than, less than, but I'm just using the greater than here. So I'm going to go ahead and put my comma in, and now it's asking for the criteria. And this is where I'm going to put my quotation mark, and I'm going to say greater than 15,000 here. So 15,000, just like this, and my quotation mark and my other parenthesis, and I'm going to hit enter, and now it finds 5 that are greater than 15,000 here. So you can go ahead and count them up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, I just want to point out cell reference, and I'm going to do this again. So if I go equals and type my COUNTIF formula here, we can make sure my fingers are in the right place. So COUNTIF, and I go ahead and start it this time. So again, my range is here, just like this, but this time I'm going to reference this cell. Again, I haven't put anything in yet, and I'm just going to end it and hit enter. You can see 0. But if I want to find, let's say, anything greater than 10,000 now, I can just type in my greater than 10,000 like this, hit enter, and it gives me back 7 that are greater than 10,000. So I can use the cell reference for that also. Now, I also want to point out on our next example here, I've showed you with numbers, but we can be looking up different letters in here or words. So if I go to this again and hit my equals and my COUNTIF and select that one, and let's say we're looking in this one, my range is here, my comma. If it's not a cell reference, I have to use my quotes here. So let's say I'm looking for north. Then I type in what I'm looking for, again, spell it correctly, and end it and end my other bracket, hit return, and it can find 3 north in here. Again, I'll leave this for you to practice, but you can go ahead and type north in one of these spots and then use the cell reference. So you can even use operations with the COUNTIF. So if you wanted to add it up multiple things in one column. So in this case, I want to see how many 1, 2, 3s and 3, 4, 1s. I could add 2 different COUNTIFs up. So if I go to this spot right now and use my equals, and I'm going to go to my COUNTIF here. And this time I'll go ahead, select my range here, just like this. And I'm going to just use, and this time I'm not using cell references, but you could on this one. So I'm just going to put 1, 2, 3, just like this here, and end my quotation. And then I'm going to put in this bracket, and I'm going to add this time. So I'm going to go ahead, put just the add sign, and I'm going to do another COUNTIF here. So I'll go COUNTIF and select this. And what do I want? Well, it's the same range. So I'm going to select this one again, put my comma, what I'm really looking to add right here. So I'm going to use my quotation mark. I'm going to put 3, 4, 1 in and my quotation mark. And now I should be able to hit, and it's going to be 7. So it's added up the 4, 1, 2, 3s and the 3, 3, 4, 1s, and it got a total of 7. You can perform other operations with this too. So if I just go back, and I'm just going to make a quick change to this. So this was adding 3 plus 4. If I go back over to here and just make a change to this here, I'm going to put multiply. So now it's going to multiply 3 times 4 and give me 12, because it's not multiplying these numbers, it's multiplying the count of the 2 numbers that I did. So you could do this with different operations if that's what you're looking for. All right, let's move over to wildcards, and I want to give you a couple examples. Wildcards can be a great way to really speed up what you're searching for. And what they do is they take the place of something and can skip over something and look for something more specifically that you want. So for an example, let's give you a simple one. And we're going to look at this name list. And I just want to see anybody that starts with the letter A. Now, if I go and start my COUNTIF formula here, and I want to see how many people start with the letter A. So my range is going to be this inside here. So I'll put my comma, give my quotation mark, and I'm just going to put A. Now I need to put the star after just like this, because that will say, well, look for the A and whatever comes after does not matter. So I'm going to go ahead, end my bracket, hit return, and I get 1. So this looked through this list. If anything started with an A, it gave me back 1. So let's just change this a little bit, and I'm just going to modify this formula. So I'm going to just take out the star and the A, and I'll type in Ned. So you can see if I hit return, it brings me back 0. There is a Ned in here, but there's a Ned Stark, and I don't want the Stark to matter in this. I just want Ned. So if I go right into here, add my star like this, hit return, you can see now it's over to 1. All right, so what I want to do this time, and I'm just going to go ahead and copy this formula here and go over to this cell here. I'm just going to paste it in just like this. So I'll just paste in the formula. You can see it's the same. I'm going to modify this one. Now, in this case, I actually want to look for last names, and I want to look for how many Starks there are. So notice that in this case, the Ned and star, how it is. If I just double click in here, I'm going to modify it from here. So if I go and actually put my star first this time, so I'm going to get rid of this, put my star first, and now I'm going to type Stark like this. And everything else can stay the same. Make sure that this is inside your quotes. I'm going to hit enter, and it has 3. So now it kind of bypassed the first letter here in that star, and now I could just write Stark. And then it found me 3 Starks, 1, 2, 3. So that's just some examples for wildcards. Let me show you one more. Another example of a wildcard that you could use would be a question mark. So if I was going to just type in, I'll use the COUNTIF here, and this one over here, I'll just use this right here to kind of give a simple demonstration. This is my criteria here. And if I go ahead and pick what I want to be looking for, so the question mark, so if I was looking for put in the question mark, so I'm saying it to ignore the first 2 spots and looking for the third one. So in this case, if I was looking for anything that had an H in there and ended it, it will give me 1 back. If I quickly go ahead and change this one, if it's looking for anything in with a C, it gives me 2 spots. So the question marks here can tell you to skip over a certain spot and then only look for the one that you're left with. And you can use different numbers of question marks on it. So the COUNTIFs are used if you have multiple criteria, if you're looking through 2 different ranges, and you could do 2 or 3 or more. I'm just going to show you with an example of 2 criteria here. And I will go to this cell right here, and we'll start with our equal. And I'm going to type in COUNTIFs. And what I want to have happen this time, I want to look for anything above 22 in this column. That will give me back and compare it to if there's a Stark there. So I'm going to have to use wildcards too. So my first is my range. So I'm going to go through here, highlight my first range, and I'll put a comma. And what do I want to have happen? So I'm going to put my quotation marks, and then I have to type in what I want. So I said greater than 22 here, and my quotation marks. Put another comma. What's my next criteria? Well, this is going to be my criteria here. And so I give it another comma. And now I'm going to use my wildcard in this here too. So I'll put my equal sign. And I just want last name Stark. So I'll put, just like I showed you before, put my asterisks in there. And I'm going to type Stark just like this, and my quotation marks and my bracket. So I should get, looking at this, I can see there's only going to be one above the 22 that is a start, so I should get one back. So I'll hit enter and I get one back on this one. So if I was going to, if I change that number, if I turn this number to 21, hit return, I get two back because now there's another star right up here that would fit in what I'm looking for. So let me give you one more example how to use this multiple criteria. If we go equals, this time I'm going to go, so we'll go COUNTIFS again. And I'm going to be looking at anybody in the north with sales above, we'll say equal to or greater than 2,000 in this case. So I'm going to go to my first range here. So my first range, I'll just start my formula here. And so this will be my first range. And I'm going to be looking for anything in the north. So I'll just go and type north. And remember, you can use cell references, but I'm typing and you have to use the quotation mark. What's my next criteria? Well, it's going to be right in here. So I put my comma again. And what am I looking for? So I use my quotes again. I'm looking for anything greater than or equal to then, we'll say 2,000. So I'm going to put in my 2,000 here and my quotation marks and my parentheses, and I'll hit enter and I get 2. So it was picking from this one right here. And if we were looking for anything above 2,000 from the north, you can see this one would be 2. This one's below. So I can go back and adjust these at any time if I was looking for a different number. So if it was going to be 2,100 here, it should drop by to 1 because this wouldn't be in what I was looking for. So remember, with multiple criteria, I could add more criteria too. I would just keep filling it out. Take a moment now and open up the date and time function practice sheet. Now, let's start off with just something simple. I'm just going to click in today's date. Now, I don't have to use the function if I want today's date. I could just simply type today's date, hit enter, and it gives me back a date. And if you're new with using dates, you can format these. So if I right click and format cells, you can pick a different format. You can go through the list here. So if I was going to just pick this, hit OK, and you can see how it's formatted here. All right, but I don't want this. So I want to be able to have a dynamic date so that if I open the worksheet tomorrow, it's going to change. And for this, I need to enter a function. And the function that I'm going to use, so I just deleted that cell, is the today function. And if I just click in here, there's a couple different ways you can get to the functions on this. So if I click this little F up in here, insert function, I could go up here. You could type today and hit go, and it would find it in the list. I could double click on today, and it just enters it in just like this. Even though it looks exactly the same as the last one I showed you, it's different because if I open this worksheet tomorrow, it's dynamic. It will say October 12th. So it's automatically going to update. And remember, I'll just delete this real quickly. You don't have to use that function key that I just showed you. You could just type this in. So if I was using today, I could just keep typing or use it at this point. I just have to make sure that I have to end that bracket there and put it in. All right, so what can we do with this? Let's just try some simple formulas now. Let's say hypothetically my birthday was December 17th, and I want to know how many days until my birthday. You can just create a formula using subtraction. If I go ahead and put equals here, and so we're starting a formula, I click on this cell right here, and I go ahead and minus. So I went to click the further one out first, and then minus this cell. And then you can see it's 67. When I open up this spreadsheet tomorrow, this would be October 12th, and this would automatically adjust to 66 because this first one's dynamic and it would change for it. Now let's see something else we can do with this. If I wanted to add something, I'll go to this cell reference here, so this cell, and I want to have a bill due after a person purchased it, and we'll say 20 days out. So what I'm going to do is I'll start another formula. I'm going to say equals, and we'll just go to this top one again. I'm going to reference this cell, and I'm going to go ahead and add. So, I'm going to go ahead and just add my this cell right here. So this grace period one, Even though I have nothing in there yet, I can quickly adjust it and change the grace period if I want. So I'll hit enter. It's the same date, even though the format's a little different. I'm going to click in here. If I say, let's say if it was in 20 days, like so, you can see it adjusted 20 days. Now it's due on Halloween here. If I was going to say 30 days, we could go ahead and it will adjust it very quickly with the cell references. I could have, instead of putting D8, so if you look up here in the formula, I could have put plus 30 and it would give me the same date, but I like using that cell reference because it's quick to change on any of these. If you want to put in maybe the time, you could do this in a number of different formats too. So if I was going to put equals, you can use the now, not the new one, you can use the now. And if I select this one and just end the bracket, hit return. Now notice it's giving me the just the date. This is because the way that this one's formatted. So if I go to format cells, if you take a look at the time one, I could adjust this and pick a time here and it will just give me back a time to it. So it depends on how you want your cell formatted. You could go through and just pick these. So you could go look at the date and time if you want. Let's say go with this one. So it's going to give me the date and the time all together. You can adjust that. I do want to point out there's some shortcuts to the static ones that make it kind of handy if you just want to enter a quick date in here. So I'll just click in this cell. So if I hit Control and then hold that down and add my semicolon, it will quickly add the date. And then if you do the Control Shift and semicolon, although I guess that kind of makes it the colon if you hold down the Shift, but then you can see how it enters some time. So those are just some quick shortcuts. So those are just some simple things with time and date. I want to show you a little bit more advanced ones that you can do too. Now, I just want to go through a number of different ways you can still add and do different things and find the differences between using times. I'm just going to click in this cell right here and I'm going to use my now function that I showed you before. So I'm going to type in now on this one and I'll just not new, I'll go now and complete it. So there's an empty worksheet that you can just go to the bottom and practice this as we go along. What I want to do first is, let's say if we want to add a half a day to this or 12 hours, we can just simply do a formula indicating this based on this time. So if I use my equal sign to start my formula and I go ahead and click on this cell and go to my addition, I can add a half a day just by putting 0.5 for a half a day. So if I go and put my 0.5 in, hit enter, and you'll be able to see that this is 12 hours ahead on this one. So, but let's say if we wanted to be more specific than this, we can actually add another, more like, so let's say 5 hours and 29 minutes to this, but then we'll have to use another function with it. So if I go to this cell right here, and I'm going to just start my formula, and I'll go back to here, clicking on this cell. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by typing time. And you can see I get this one right here. I'm going to choose this. Now all I have to do is follow along. So how many hours did I say? Well, I said 5, right? And then you put the comma, follow it along. How many minutes? 29. Now I could even get to the second, but I didn't say any second. So I'm just going to put 0 and I'm going to end this and hit enter. And you can see now it jumped ahead 5 hours and 29 minutes. So those are just some tips of how you can be adding specific amounts of times or hours to a date. And I just want to note, anytime there's any changes to the worksheet, that this will change automatically here. It's dynamic, right? So it's going to make those changes and everything will adjust from there. Another cool function with date and time inside Excel is the workday. So I can actually count, I want to know when is 30 workdays from a certain time. So I typed in November 1st right here, and I want to know when is 30 workdays. And I can calculate this a couple different ways, and I could have it with or without holidays, depending on how the workplace works. First of all, I'm going to do this without any holidays in it. If you look up top, and I didn't point out this yet, but if you look under the tabs and you look under formulas, there's all these date and time ones right here. So I could click down and take a look at all the different ones here. But if I go to workday right here and just click on this, I get this dialog box, the arguments that I want to put in. Well, I just put November 1st here. and I'm going to click on it. So that's the start date B6. How many days am I looking at? Let's say 30 days, 30 work days. When will the date be? I won't put the holidays yet. I'll just put okay. So then you can see that 30 work days from November 1st would be December 13th. Now, let's say if I wanted to do with the holidays, if I wanted, I could do just type equals workplace or go back up to date and time and work day and go up here. So my start date is here. 30 days again is here. This time I'm going to add holidays. So I wrote them over here. So these are the two holidays that in November. I'm going to highlight them like this. You can see it gave that range. I hit OK. And now it's December 15th. So they took these as holidays and now it changed the date. So that's just pointing out a work day, counting work days for you, and also making sure that you see under formulas, you have all these different ones that you can use. So there's lots of other date and time functions here from the library if you look under date and time, and I recommend you playing around with those. But the last function I want to show you today is one you're not going to find on this list, and that is date diff. And date diff can calculate the difference, whether it be days, months, or years between two different dates. And I want to show you how that works. So I'm going to start with the formula in this cell here, date diff, and I'll type, you got to make sure you start with the equal sign. So I'm going to type date diff like this, and I'm going to go ahead and start it. If I click on this, this will give me some help on the right-hand side to kind of show you the argument description and the units to use. But how it works is if I click on this first date where it says December 2nd, 2020, and then I just put a comma and I click on the second date and put another comma, what I can do is then just in quotation marks, put D for day, that's the unit, and make sure you have it in quotation marks and then enter and you get the days. Now you can do the same thing for months. So you go ahead and start it and put date diff like this and start it up and click on the first one, comma, second one like this, and then making sure that you have the M for month and end it, and you get 10 months. And you could do the same thing, give it a try with year, just putting the Y in there, and you'll see the different what it will come up as a 0 on it because it's not a full year. Are you ready to keep advancing your Microsoft Excel skills? Through this next and last section, we're going to be looking at 3 more things. We're going to look at pivot tables, how to create them. We're going to look at the powerful function of VLOOKUP. And then we're going to look at a couple more functions with how to use filter and unique to do a drop-down menu that's multiple dependent. So let's finish up with these powerful Excel skills. So we're starting with how to create a pivot table, and this is the data that we're using here. If you haven't downloaded this yet, just hit pause on the video, go to that link I mentioned before and download it and open it up. Now, to do an insert, it's very simple. You just go up to the menu and hit insert, and below in the ribbon, you're going to see pivot tables right away. As I go through these pivot tables, I'm going to give you some tips and tricks also. And I'm going to start with a tip right away. And the first tip is to select inside anywhere in the range or the table, if you're using a table, before you go and click on pivot table. Because what it does, it automatically finds the range for you. So here's an example. If I go up to pivot tables, notice that they have some recommended pivot tables here. I'm going to cancel and click out, and I click on recommended again, and it doesn't know. Now I could still select my table or range from here and it'll be fine. But just as a quick tip, if you select inside of it and pick pivot table or recommended pivot tables, it's going to know where the data is coming from. Now, I just want to mention a little bit about the recommended pivot tables. This is a quick way to create them. Usually they're pretty accurate with probably the main ones that you would want, but you can see where it goes sum of unit cost by region, sum of unit cost by item. It does some recommendations based on the data and the titles that they think that you would want. So you can always start with recommended pivot tables and choose one of them, but we're going to be going from pivot table on it. So, and after we go through pivot table, you'll understand after you insert the recommended pivot tables, you can still make the same changes. So I'm just going to go ahead, click pivot table, and you can see that right away, since I'm clicked inside of the range here, that it has the sheet and the range from A1 to G44 here. Now, where do you want this pivot table to go? So this is important. Do you want a new worksheet or do you want it to be on the same worksheet? So I'm going to go new worksheet. So it's going to open up another tab. You can choose what you want to do on that, or you can set a different location here. So you can also choose whether you want to analyze multiple tables. And I'm not doing that in this case, but I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And what you get, if I look down at the tab at the bottom, you can see I have a new sheet right here. And now they're asking me to start building my report by selecting my different fields to put onto it. So now we have to be selecting our pivot table fields, and if we look over on the right, and it can be done very quickly. So if I go ahead and I'll just click on sales rep, and what you notice is it gets put into rows, and now the names are going to go down this column, and then the data, as I select it, would be put into rows. You can quickly change this. So I could drag it into columns, and now the names are going to go across the top, and we are going to have our information below it in the columns. Now we can quickly turn this off and on, the sales rep. So if I click off of it, it goes away. We can drag these down too. So if I drag this into a spot, I could drag it around into columns. You can see how easy it is to manipulate. So I have another tip here that I want to give you. So this is kind of the default setup here with the fields down below where you drag into. If you go up to the gear here and tools and drop down, you can pick a different way to view it. So I prefer this one right here. I'm just going to select it, and we get these on the side here with our different fields that we can just drag across. Now that's up to you, what you prefer. And the other thing I want to point out with, if we go back to it, you can sort your fields A to Z. So if you go ahead and select it, you can see how it changes it. Now this, if you had a lot of different fields, this would just make it easier to find them. So just remember those couple tips right there. Okay, let's add some more things to this now. So we're going to have our sales rep here, and I want this in columns, and I'm going to place it here so you can see some of the ones are hiding right now. And the other thing I want to add, so let's go ahead and add our totals, and you can see as I click on different ones, how quickly it starts to change. So I can click on and off. I'm going to go ahead and click on units. It shows all my sums of units here. But what I want is to have items. So when I click my items, now I do want this in rows, it places them down here. So now if I pick my units, it fills in. So I can see each person. So if I look at Dwight's, I can look at per binder, per desk, and all the different items, and it gives me the grand total there. So these are just some different ways you can get some quick your report being built by selecting the fields. So did you notice if you click out of the data that the pivot table fields go away? So click back in and they reopen here. Now, I want to point out, just if you're adding more fields, let's try, I'm going to add a region here. So if I click on region, you can see it added it to the rows at first, and then it's going to be breaking down this way. It breaks down the binder and based on the central, north, and south where it was being sold in different places. Now, if I bring this over to columns, you can see now that it's going to go across the top. It's kind of breaking it between the different salespeople. So in the case of someone like Erin, you can see that she sold in the central and north, while Dwight only sold in the central here. So go ahead, try different things. Try adding, by selecting different ones, seeing how it works to get the different reports on it, and then moving from rows to column to see the ways you can adjust it. Now, another way you can adjust it is to sort. And if I look over here, you can see that we have a drop down, and this is going to help me sort. So in this case, this is going to sort my column labels, which are the sales reps here. And if I drop down, I can go ahead and select individual ones. So if I said, okay, let's deselect, and I'm going to go and let's compare Dwight, and I'm going to compare Jim, and hit OK. And you can see that we have the two right here, and I can look side by side to see their totals of their items being sold. If I wanted to see total of amounts in different ones, I could pick a different thing to add from over here to add it. And you can see how quickly it can adjust. So if you drop down again, I could select everything, hit OK, and everything goes back on. I can select this way too. So if I wanted to sort a little bit more, if I didn't want to see all the different items, maybe I just wanted to see paper, I could hit OK. And now I'm just seeing paper and I see the salesperson. So it makes it easy to look at that way. So go and try a few different ways to sort. Now I want to show you how you can actually build an individual report, and it will create a new tab down below for each sales rep, or depending on what you're creating. And it's done only with only a few clicks. So before I show you how to create a tab for each salesperson, I wanted to point out the use of filters. So let's say in this data with the units, I just want to see by region also, and I like to filter through there. So if I go and take region and put it in filters, you can see up top, I can simply now drop down and I could be looking for a certain region or zone. So if I wanted to see in central, I hit OK, and I just get those results back. You can also see that you can select multiple. So if you want it more than one, or switch it back. It's easy to add more than one filter, or even move from different ones. I could take this sales rep here and move it up. And now I can sort by region and sales rep. So if I was looking for, let's say in the north, and I'm going to also choose a sales rep, I'll choose Pam, hit OK. I can see in the north, she sold this many. If I was going to go back and check out a different region, at this point, you can see now she hasn't got anything in the south. So I just wanted to point out the use of filters, but now I want to show you how you can use the filters to create a tab for each salesperson in this example. So I'm going to go ahead and deselect the items that I have here, and I'm going to build another report. And remember, I want a new tab for each one, for each salesperson. So I do need a total, and this is going to go into the values here. I do want the item there, so I can see the item beside the total here. And we're going to need the sales rep. And I'm going to actually add this to the filter. So I'm just going to drag it into the filter like this. Now, something else I want to point out is to format your numbers here. So if I go and just select in here, I can right click and number format. So maybe you want it in accounting or currency. You can see the different examples that goes through. So if I wanted 2 decimal places and to look like this, I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And you can see how it formats it. You can choose the format that you would like. The other thing I want to show you is if I right click on this, you can sort this. So maybe I wanted it from smallest to largest, or largest or smallest, or some more. I'll just go largest to smallest, just like this. So some things that you can do to it. Now, what I want to do is generate the individual reports on each tab. If I go ahead and drop down and go to options right here, and you can see show report filter pages. So when I select this, we're going to get show report filter pages. If I go ahead and hit OK now, it's going to go ahead, and if I look at the bottom, so if I look, there's Andy's, there's Dwight's, there's Aaron, I'm going to get an individual report for each salesperson, and you could adjust it depending on what you want. So I wanted to make sure you understood how you could do that very simply inside the pivot table fields. So I'm just going to go back. You can see as I go through these different ones, I'm just going to go back to the original pivot table that I was working on here. And I just want to show you a couple other things and some more tips. Now, let's say I was curious where this 2,135.14 number came from. If you double click on a number, so I'm just going to double click on this number, it opens this up and shows how that number was created by all of this information. So that was by a double click. It opened up a new sheet when I did it. You can see there's a sheet 16 beside it now. So just try double clicking on a number and it's going to show you how it's even broken down more. Now, some other things I want to show you with formatting, and usually things can be done in a few different ways. I'm going to just show you if I go down to values here, right here, and just drop down, you can see that there's value field settings. You can also get to value field settings. If you right click on them too, you can see value field settings right here. So if I go ahead and choose this settings here, value field settings, let's say I could say an average account. If I was doing a count, hit OK. Well, the dollars don't make any sense anymore, but it's just counting up. Here it would be 15 rather than $15. So depending on what you were trying to show in your pivot tables, remember that we have value settings and you can change what you want right through here. So I'm going to leave this as sum. Now, another thing I want to show you when you're right clicking is if you right click, you can show values as. So I find this is a cool way to show percentage. So do we want, you try a few different ones. So if I say percentage of row total, column total, let's say column total, I can see that the binders make up 48%. The pens will make up 21%, and it just shows you in a different way. So all these different reports can be generated, and remember you're right clicking to get to more of these here. So I just go back to no calculation and it's gone. So now I want to show you how you can apply some conditional formatting to your pivot table numbers here before we get into the graphing and charting. So let's say if we want this to be like a data bar through here. So what I need to do is go back up to the Home tab up top here and look under conditional formatting. If I drop down, you can see we can apply all these different things, but we're looking at the data bars. And if I hover over, notice it's just doing the cell that I'm selected in. And I want it to be applying to all of them. In this case, just go to more rules right here. And you can see apply rule to only that cell. No, we want it to apply to that a cell showing the sum of total values here. So if I select this one here, that will do the trick. Now, the other thing, do you want the numbers to be shown? So right now it will show both, or do you want it to be just the bar only? So I can go and pick a color now and it will preview down below. So maybe I pick an orange, just like that. And I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And now I have a data bar applying to these different ones. So just a different way to show, show your reports that you can add conditional formatting to them. Okay, let's move over to graphing or charting our pivot tables now. So let's say you want to chart your pivot table report just to make it look a little bit better, a little bit easier for people to just take that quick glance and know what's happening. So I'm just going to select inside of this here, and I'm going to go up to Insert and take a look. We have Pivot Chart right here. We do have the drop down. I'm just clicking on it here, and right away, so it defaulted to the column. I can pick, just get an idea maybe of different ones, how it looks here just by going through. I'm going to keep this simple. I'm going to create a pie chart here. You can see up top, if I wanted to see a different view, I can hover over to get the view to try any of these different ones. I'm going to just keep it to the pie right now. Okay, so now just hit OK on it, and I have this in here. I can move it around. I can size it if I wanted to differently, if you wanted it larger here. Now, I want to point out this is dynamic, so I can take a look at different things. So if I wanted to take the look at the sales rep here, maybe I wanted to compare different ones, I could select multiple. Maybe I just wanted to pick one. So if I pick Michael Scott, I can see just the one person's here. So it's going through finding the information and breaking it down for me. You can see the items are over here. So if I go back, I can go and select all, and it puts it back again. So you can sort using the chart to give those quick looks. I can drop down here also, and if I wanted to maybe deselect, if I just wanted two things here. So if I had paper and desk, hit OK, and it just compares the two different ones. So you can do all these different things within the chart still, just like we were doing just with the data before. So, but you can apply this to the chart. So now what I wanted to show you too, you can make this, customize this look. if you just double click in it, if this wasn't open, this format chart area, just double click on it and it will open it up. You can see I can quickly start to change things, whether I want it to be maybe a gradient fill. You can see how the background changes. I can adjust my colors down here if I wanted to add different ones. If I wanted a pattern fill, you can play with all these different options. We have our text options also here. So if you wanted to change different fonts and colors, you can adjust all those things. So if I go ahead and select, maybe I wanted this to be differently, I can even drop down. So that's the chart title. Or if I wanted maybe the legend here, you can see how it selects different things. So I could go ahead, maybe I'll add, I can change the fonts like this. If I wanted the legend to be positioned differently, I can start to change things all around. So all these different things that you can play with to get the chart looking how you want. You can move these inside too. So if I wanted to place these in different places, again, you can size your chart differently to get it the way you want. So I hope you like this, this intermediate pivot tables. I'm going to do more about pivot tables in future lessons, just because there's more that you can do with this. I thought this would be a good start for you if you kind of just maybe touch the surface to them before, or maybe haven't used them at all either. So now we're ready to move on to our next section. So now I want to show you how to use VLOOKUP in Microsoft Excel. VLOOKUP is a very powerful function that you can use to look up something in a column vertically. That's where the V is going to come from. So it looks down a column that you set, because it's going to be the furthest left, and then it returns some item in that corresponding row. So in this case here, I already have VLOOKUP in this cell already created. I'll create a new one here. If I just go ahead and select this cell, you can see in the formula bar, it's already there. But what it's going to go through, so it looks at GOTC right here, and it finds, I told it to go down the furthest left of the selection, and this is this vertical column here. It finds GOTC. Then I told it to look up the in that row the salary here. So it gave me back 68,000. So let me just change it. So instead of C, I'm just going to go put I here, and it returned 58,000. So it went over to the furthest left here of the range that I selected, and it went down and it found GOTI right here, and it went across and found $58,000. So this is a small data set here. If this was a large one, you would probably see how much more powerful this is. But if you had thousands of employees and you're looking up something like this, with this formula, you can simply just do those searches really, really quickly. Now, something I just wanted to point out here with VLOOKUP, I was just taking a look at the XLOOKUP function, because XLOOKUP has a few more capabilities to it. With VLOOKUP, you can only look to the right, but XLOOKUP, you can actually look left or right. And with XLOOKUP, you can kind of do the HLOOKUP or VLOOKUP together. So it's something I would recommend if you have a newer version of Microsoft Excel. I do have a video tutorial on that, and I'll put a link in the description down below and up and above in the card. So let's go ahead and start our VLOOKUP and build it for this sheet. And if you haven't got this sheet open, hit pause, download it, and follow along. So we're going to go through the VLOOKUP function a couple times, a couple different examples in two different cells. The first place we're going to put the VLOOKUP function is right in this cell. So what I want to have happen is it's going to look up an employee name and bring me back an employee designation. So it needs to go over to this column here and then look down this column here to find the designation in the same row that it found the employee name. So we're going to start in this one. The first time we're going to go and just go insert function up here. So open up that one, insert function. If you don't see VLOOKUP, just do a quick search. You don't need to type the whole thing here. I'm just going to hit go and then double click on it. So we get our four different arguments here. So the first argument is going to be the lookup value. Well, the lookup value is what the name is that I type into this cell. So this is going to be the lookup cell or lookup value in this cell right here. So I'm going to click in I6, and you can see it put I6 into there. The next is the table array. So I'm going to click in this spot, And the table array is going to be the selection. And remember, it's going to be the furthest left column of that array that is going to search down. So it's going to look for a name here. And so I need to make sure this is the furthest left column, and it is. So I'm going to select here. And I need it to go to at least go to employee designation. It could go all the way to salary if I wanted, but it doesn't need to. But I'm going to leave it right there for this one. Now, the next one is the column index, and this is how it works. So in B, this is the first part of the table or range here. So this is column 1. Even though I have A here, there's nothing in it. This doesn't count. So B is number 1, C is number 2, D is number 3, E is number 4, and F is number 5. So we told it it's going to look down the furthest left of my array, that is this one, and I need it to look down. What's the column I need it to search through? Well, it's going to be D right here, and that's 3 because it's 1, 2, 3. So I need to put 3 in here just like that. So the next thing, what I want to do is type in a true or false. I could leave it blank too, but in this case, I'm going to type false, and that means an exact match. If I put true, it's an approximate match, but I wanted to find an exact match in this case. So I'm going to type in false like so, and I'm going to hit OK. And it came back, notice it came back with NA here. That's because I don't have anything typed in. So let's just type in John here, and we'll type John, and it returns software engineer. So went to the furthest left of the array that I showed, that I selected, and then it went to column 3 and found what was in there. So that's software engineer. So if I go ahead and type Bran here, it went down this column, the furthest left, and then it searched column 3 and brought back analyst. So this is working quite well. You can see it doesn't take a lot to create the VLOOKUP function. One problem is if you're using false, I'll show you the problem. If we go to Bran here, and I'm going to just click in here, and let's say there's some spaces, just like that. Notice it went to NA. It's because we are looking for an exact match. And you got to be careful, not if you're using exact match, not to have spaces. So as soon as I get back, delete that again, and hit enter, you notice it works again. So I just wanted to point this out. Okay, let's run through VLOOKUP one more time. So I'm going to go ahead and recreate the top one from up here for VLOOKUP. Now, the reason I'm going to do this because it's a little different on how to count the columns. So I'm going to go, what do I want to have happen? Well, the VLOOKUP is going to go into this cell. So it's I10. And I'm going to start my function this way this time just by putting the equal sign, then VLOOKUP, and I'm going to choose it right through here. So what is my lookup value going to be? Well, the lookup value is going to be whatever I put into this. So this is going to be the code. And I'm just going to go ahead, click on that cell, I9, and comma. What's going to be my table array on this one? Well, my table array on this one is going to go from the code up here to the salary one here. So there's going to be 4 different columns in there. And then at the next point, I'm going to put my comma. What's my column index? And now this is where things have changed. So remember last time I said B was 1. Now that the array is starting here, this is going to be 1. So C is 1, D is 2, E is 3, F is 4. So it's wherever the array is going to be starting on it. So I just wanted to point that out. So what do I need? This is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. So I have to put 4 for my number on it because this is not selected in it. So I'm going to go ahead, put my comma, and then put my exact match again. And that should be all I need. I'm just going to finish off with a bracket, and let's try this out. So if I just put in GOTI, like so, and you can see that GOTI here was $58,000 here. So I just wanted to point out when I was doing the VLOOKUP function this way is making sure that you understood when you count your columns, it's wherever the array starts, that's going to be number 1, and then you move over from there. And then if you have to go back and correct anything, you can just go back. You can either correct it up top here or double click into the cell and it will open up. So if you wanted to change this to true or false, you can move those back and forth or change a different range too. All right, let's get ready to move on to the next section, and that's going to be creating the multiple dependent drop-down list in Microsoft Excel. And I'm actually going to use a VLOOKUP function in that one too. I'll add that at the end. All right, let's go to the next one. So in this section, I want to show you how to create a multiple dependent drop-down list in Microsoft Excel. Now, there's different ways that you can do this. I actually have different videos showing different functions and formulas to create this. I'll put a list of those down below and you can check those out to see if those work better for you. In this one here today that you'll be working through, we're going to be using the unique function and the filter function. So what we're going to do, I'm just going to give you a little demo here to start with. And what it means is when we have a dependent drop-down list, what I choose in here will influence what I get over here. So if I drop down here, it shows the different departments. These different departments are being pulled from this column over here. So if I pick finance here, then my list will change here. So it will change on what I can pick. So there's only accountant in here. So I'll show you if I picked a different one, if I went to security and then drop down, you'll see that I get head of security or the guard. So if I was picking guard and then drop down, I only have one person that's listed as a guard. But if I was going to go back and pick maybe, let's say, marketing, and then I was picking marketing assistant and then drop down, notice that 2 people came up for marketing assistant, and then I could pick one of them and then their salary comes up based on what I picked. So these were all dependent upon what I chose before. And that's what I want to show you how to create today in Microsoft Excel. So the first step here is to be able to pull out the individual market names here. You can see that there's 2 sales here, 3 sales, there's multiple marketing. I don't want it to be written each time. I just want sales to be once and finance to be once. So I just want to be able to have all the different department names. So what I'm going to do is use the unique formula to begin with, and I'm not going to put it in this spot right here. I'm actually going to just put it to the side here, and I'm going to start my formula here. I'm going to be putting all my my unique and filters down in this row, and then I'm going to hide it after so you can't see it. So I'm going to go equals, and then I can start typing unique. You can see as I start typing, it's closer and closer. Here's unique. I'm going to select it. All I need to do is select what I need to be searching, and it's going to be this right here. So I'm just using a range here. If you were using a table, you would be able to select that column by the column's name too, but I'm just using a range. So I'm actually going to just hit enter, and I get my unique different department names. Now, this is what I'm going to be putting in department over here, and this is where I need to use data validation. And where you find this is if you go up to the data tab up top and then looking in the ribbon, find your data validation. So I'm just going to click on it. And what we need to change it to is list. So allow list just like this. And what is the list going to be? So I'm just going to click on this. It's in this spot here. This is where the list is coming from. And I'm just going to hit enter. And I'm going to show you something. I'm going to make a change to this so it works better in a moment. I'm going to hit OK and watch this, what happens. So I drop down. Notice it only says sales on this. What I could do, I could have selected everything so it would have shown everything. But what I like to do is, and I'm just going to click on data validation again and open it back up. If you add a hashtag at the end, it will always adapt to how many spaces is in that list that it's pulling. So if I hit OK now, and go back, you can see that all of these from here are now in my drop-down list here. So this is the first step that we're going to do. So the next step that I want to have happen, I want to be able to, once I choose sales, then I should be able to only look within the sales job titles that are there. So it should look down this list, and there are repeats of different ones. You can see there's sales assistant and sales manager. So it should find 2 different things. So I am going to be using unique, but I also need to filter it, and I need to connect it to this H2 cell. So let's go ahead and start our unique function formula over here. And to do this, I'm just going to put equals and then start typing unique, and I can see it pop up. but right away I need to add the filter function. So if I start typing filter and I need to add this, and what do I need to be looking at the arrays? So I'm going to be comparing this, and I'm just going to select the whole column here. And then I'm going to put a comma. It's going to be comparing to this one here. But when this one equals what? Well, this is where I need to put the equal sign in, not the plus, equals this spot here. So it's going to look down C to see when this connects to here. And then that's the end. So that's one bracket. We have to add another bracket because we have the two opening ones there too. So I'm just going to hit enter. And you can see, since I have sales, now it brought back sales manager and a sales assistant. If I drop down and go to marketing, it brought back these two. Now we're going to do the same thing what we did before. We are going to put the data validation up here. So I go to this spot, I click on data validation, and what am I going to use? Well, I'm going to use a list again. And what's my source going to be? So I can click on this, and I'm just going to click in this cell here, and I'm going to add the hashtag right away, hit enter, and hit OK. So now we should have this marketing manager, marketing assistant. It's pulling from here. So if I change this to finance, and look what we have, there should only be accountant, and you can see it reflected over here. We'll make one more change to make sure it's working. Security, and now we should have this drop down between head of security and guard. Okay, let's move to our next spot. So now we want the names to populate down here based on the guard. So like if we had this selected, it should just choose the one guard that we have in the name list. So how do we do this? Well, the names are all unique already, so we don't have to use the unique function in this one. We'll just use a filter and connect it back to the H2 spot or H3 cell that we already have. So I'm going to go back to my J column, and I'm going to put in equals, and we'll use our filter here. And what is it that we're going to be needing? Well, I'm going to need this column right here. And what's going to be the next one? It's going to be the job title. So it's when the job title is equal to what? Well, it's when the job title is equal to whatever's in this cell right here. So now I can go ahead and just close that. And you can see there's the one name. So let's see what happens up here as we choose. If we choose marketing and we choose, let's say marketing assistant, we should have two names right here. So it's pulled the list. So now we have to use our data validation to put it back into the drop-down list here. So I'm just going to select this cell, make sure you're under data, go to data validation, drop down, choose your list, choose your source. It's just going to be this spot here. I'm going to add my hashtag, hit enter, and hit OK. So now I should get those two here. So we have one more step here that we want to add, and we want to be able to connect their salary here. And we're going to do this actually with VLOOKUP, sort of similar to what we did in our last lesson. Now let's use our VLOOKUP function to finish this off by getting the salary connected to the name. So our function is going to go in this cell right here in H7, and we're going to start this with our equal, and we're going to look up for VL, and there it is. I'm going to select it. So what are we looking up? Well, we're going to look up what name is in this cell right here. So I'm going to select it. That's my lookup value. Place my comma. What's my table array? Well, my table array is going to be going from this part up here, the beginning of the names, down to the end of the salary here. Now, our next point is our column index. Now, remember, since employee name is the first column, this is number one. So this is the first column in the array. This is 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're going to need to have the column index number be 4. So I'm going to put in number 4 like that, and I'll put another comma, and I want it to be false because I want the exact match. And I'll just end this and hit enter. And let's try it out a few times. So if we're dropping down here, and if I was looking in sales, drop down, see the, maybe I want to see sales manager, and drop down here, and I can see Walter White gets $186,556. And the thing I want to point out now, you can see all these things changing in the column J. You can hide this. So what you can do, if you right click at the top of the column here on J, we do have hide here. So it didn't delete it, it just hid it there. So now people won't see the information coming up there. And then you have your multiple dependent drop downs working right through here. And then you have the VLOOKUP function getting that salary from reading this last cell. So like I said before, there's many different ways that you can create multiple dependent drop downs in Microsoft Excel. I do have other ones. I like the XLOOKUP one too. You don't have anything to hide in cells, so take a look at that one. And I have some other ones too. I'll put the links to those, as I mentioned, down below and in the cards. This brings us to the end of this Microsoft Excel beginners course. 3 hours packed full of lots of lessons there. Let me know what else you want to learn in Microsoft Excel. I always have weekly videos coming out on Excel and many other topics. Thanks for watching this time on Teachers Tech. I'll see you next time with more tech tips and tutorials.